Douluo, leave everything on autopilot and become a god. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Hu Jiu and -039's considerations. Hearing that Hu Jiu was going to choose a waste spirit beast like the variety monster as his second spirit ring, Tang San thought he was crazy. Although Hu Jiu has verified his theory and proved that the age of a spirit ring can indeed be increased through cultivation, it is useless. He has already tried it. For more than half a year, his first spirit ring has only improved a little. Years have not come. If Hu Jiu planned to increase the age limit after obtaining the spirit ring, he would definitely stop it. I remember Grandmaster once said, there are no wasteful spirits, only wasteful spirit masters, right? Although I didn't really care about Grandmaster, it was really good to use it as a shield at this time. Jiu, don't say it. This time is really bad. I can't watch you jump into the fire pit. Tang San waved his hands emotionally, interrupting Hu Jiu's explanation. This time the hunt for spirit rings. The teacher has invited the dean to come out in person through the relationship. I have agreed with the teacher, and then I will take you to act together. Your second spirit ring must be more than 500 years old. This matter is not negotiable. At the end, Tang San's tone was rarely fierce. In his heart, Hu Jiu is his good brother, and he is a good big brother. He couldn't watch his good brother jump into the fire pit. He had to pull him back. Little San, listen to me. Hu Jiu looked at Tang San helplessly, always feeling that Tang San had been stunned by his gaze. Maybe it should be named Tang San Zhang in the future. I don't listen. I don't listen. This is not negotiable. Tang San shook his head repeatedly, not giving Hu Jiu a chance to explain. Fuck, little San, don't do this. Facing Tang San like this, Hu Jiu was helpless and finally made a big move. After summoning the spirit, Hu Jiu shouted, Little San, look at my spirit ring first. Tang San is a little confused. What's so good about spirit rings? Following Hu Jiu's gaze, he saw the bright yellow spirit ring under Hu Jiu's feet. Bright. Wait, why is Hu Jiu's spirit ring so bright? This brightness is simply brighter than his own spirit ring. For a moment, Tang San felt blinded by Hu Jiu's spirit ring. Haha, Little San, now you won't stop me from choosing what spirit beast as a spirit ring. Hu Jiu looked at Tang San with a shocked expression. Jiu, you'd better not reveal your spirit ring age easily in the future, otherwise it will bring you unnecessary trouble. After being stunned for a while, Tang San finally reacted, and he looked at Hu Jiu deeply. A glance reminded, don't worry, I'm not that stupid, only you and Xiao Wu know about the changes in my spirit ring. Hu Jiu replied with a wave of her hand. He is not a fool. It is not a big deal. Just to improve his martial spirit through cultivation. After all, it is better to increase his own spirit power cultivation, if he has that spare time. But Hu Jiu's spirit ring's improvement speed is too fast. In just half a year, it has improved for 400 or 500 years. If it is discovered with bad intentions, maybe he will be taken to study and slice. Jiu, although I don't know how you increased the age of your spirit ring so quickly, I don't want to know. But Tang San looked at Hu Jiu deeply. Everyone has their own secrets. As someone who already has secrets, man, he understands this very well. But even if you can easily increase the age of your spirit ring, I can't let you choose the variety monster as your second spirit ring. What did you say you want to change your skills for? Jiu, I warn you, I promised old Jack Grandpa to take care of you. If I find out what you have done, I will not spare you. Said finally, Tang San's tone became severe. What can change skills do? Tang San didn't even have to think about it. He could list a lot of tricks. He is the eldest brother. In his opinion, if Hu Jiu becomes bad, it is his responsibility, because he did not take good care of him for Grandpa Jack. Hu Jiu looked at Tang San depressedly. Brother, are you thinking of something bad? Why do you think more than I do? But he couldn't explain it to Tang San. Could he tell Tang San that the reason why he chose Variety's transformation skill was because of Xiao Wu next to him? I'm afraid even if he confessed to him, Tang San wouldn't agree, so this matter can only be kept in my heart. I can't even talk about it to Xiao Wu. I can't say to Xiao Wu, hey, I already know that you are a little rabbit. Don't be afraid. I will not despise you. If you say so, I'm afraid you will be beaten. The reason why Hu Jiu chose the transformation skill as his second soul skill, Hu Jiu also had his own considerations. Mainly for Xiao Wu. After all, in his heart, Xiao Wu is already his person, and when he grows up, he will be able to let go with the flow and pick this cute little bunny. But before that, he needed to protect Xiao Wu's safety. Not for anything else, just to hide Xiao Wu's own aura, so that no one would find out that Xiao Wu was transformed from a soul beast. Especially the people in the spirit hall. If they are discovered, the consequences will be disastrous. If it develops according to the original plot, maybe Xiao Wu will successfully pass through Tang San's relationship and obtain the bead of Acacia Heartbroken Red, the fairy grass that represents beautiful love, so that he can hide his soul beast aura. But that's just the original point. Now that he has joined, he is not sure how the follow-up plot will develop. After all, even the protagonist Tang San's spirit power cultivation is much faster than the original book. What if Tang San was beaten to death in advance because he was too talented in the future? In order to find a way to conceal that Xiao Wu was a soul beast, Hu Jiu read through a lot of information and finally found a reliable method. According to the information, although the change skill obtained from the variety monster is garbage, it has a very inconspicuous hidden effect, that is, changing his own breath. This knowledge is very inconspicuous. If he hadn't watched carefully, maybe I missed this message. Although this kind of change in aura cannot be concealed from a powerhouse with a high level of cultivation, don't forget that Hu Jiu can increase the lifespan of his spirit ring. If it doesn't work in 10 years, it will be 100 years, and if it doesn't work in 100 years, it will be 1,000 years. Although he is not sure about Xiao Wu's future, can you hide in front of title Douluo, but at least it's better than doing nothing at all. Moreover, he has another preparation. He decided to temporarily maintain the growth path of the original book to see if he can get the immortal grass smoothly. That immortal grass will have a good effect on both Xiao Wu and himself. After getting these benefits, no matter what you do in the future, there will be no more worries. It's a pity that he couldn't tell people about these thoughts in his heart. He could only bury them deeply in his heart. At this moment, he felt that he was really great. He was a great hero, and when he married Xiao Wu in the future, he had to let her give birth to a few more bunnies to repay him. For a while, Hu Jiu looked at Xiao Wu, who was nibbling on carrots, and thought about it for a long time. Chapter 27 Elopement. The next day. Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu walked out of Notting College early in the morning and headed westward to the neighboring city of Macho. Xiao Wu, you really want to go to Macho City with me? It's a long way to go there. It takes a lot of time just to travel. Hu Jiu had a hammer hanging from his waist, watching as he jumped away. Little dance in front of course, you are an auxiliary spirit master, although you have some fighting ability, but you are still a little short, so Sister Xiao Wu is very kind, so I will help you, but I'm not helping you in vain. Xiao Wu turned her head and gestured with her fingers with a smile. I want 500 carrots. After thinking about it, she blinked again and said, no, I want 1,000 carrots, not less than one. Haha, okay, you can eat carrots for the rest of your life in the future. Looking at the charming Xiao Wu, Hu Jiu chuckled softly. However, we just ran away like this. Will your good brother Tang San blame you in the future? After thinking about it, Xiao Wu still asked with concern. Xiao Wu didn't care about Hu Jiu's choice of the second spirit ring. In her opinion, no matter what spirit ring Hu Jiu chose, she would respect his decision. Of course, the premise is that his carrots are more delicious. Little San, don't worry, after obtaining the spirit ring, he will have nothing to do. At most, he will scold at him when he goes back. Hu Jiu had already thought about this. Moreover, he is very optimistic about the skill of change. Indeed, the 10-year-old variety monster can't bring him such a powerful skill effect point. But what if he himself raised this spirit ring to a very high level in the future? Does that mean that you can change whatever you want? Contrasting the fake with the real for a while, Hu Jiu was full of expectations before leaving. He checked the information, and the variety monster was a special product of the monster forest in Mato City in the west. Among them, the spirit beast with the highest cultivation level was only about 100 years old. With his and Xiao Wu's cultivation level, it was more than enough to deal with it. This time, because of being with Xiao Wu, Hu Jiu chose to walk. Originally, they could get there in 2 days by carriage, but they had to walk for 5 days along the way. The two of them traveled in the mountains and waters. Just like the trip was not for the spirit ring, but for traveling. There is one thing that makes Hu Jiu very happy, because this time the two are alone together. The relationship between him and Xiao Wu has finally made a breakthrough. Seeing the two of them walking forward happily, shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand, they were almost holding hands. It's not that Hu Jiu didn't have the guts. The main thing was that Xiao Wu seemed to have noticed it. Whenever he made a move, he would get Xiao Wu's eyes in exchange, leaving Hu Jiu helpless. But Hu Jiu is not in a hurry. Anyway, there will be many opportunities in the future, and it is not bad at this time. Originally, Hu Jiu thought that this trip would be very smooth. After all, isn't it as the old saying goes, the elderly, children and women are the least to be offended when walking in the rivers and lakes. He and Xiao Wu were considered two of them. Unfortunately, in Douluo continent, no one seems to have summed up this experience iron. In short, they are now in trouble. When they were about to arrive at Mato City, there were more pedestrians on the road. The small ones were crop men carrying local specialties, the big ones were caravans going to do business, and occasionally there were adventurers dressed as spirit masters, and they met a pair of wealthy children. "Hey, little sister, where are you going?" "Young master, I'm in a good mood today, and I'll take you for a free ride." A pale-faced young man who was 17 or 18 stopped Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu's way. On the surface, this man had a kind-hearted look, but he couldn't hide the obscenity in his eyes. This beast is staring at Xiao Wu. Looking at the young man who was talking to Xiao Wu, Hu Jiu lowered his head to hide the fierce light in his eyes. At the same time, he also secretly sensed the two guards behind the youth. Level 25. Judging from his light footsteps, he should be a great spirit master of the agility system. The other one is about 26th level. Judging from his thick palms and sturdy stature, he is obviously a strong attack type spirit master. As for this young man, he's only 18 when he grows up, which is a shame. In just an instant, Hu Jiu sensed so much information through the 7th level 5 sense enhancement technique. At this time, the young man on the opposite side was still chattering and inviting Xiao Wu to get on his carriage. "Go away," Xiao Wu said coldly with a rare cold expression on her face. "What are you talking about, you little girl who doesn't know what to do? I'm the son of the toilet of the Lord of Mato City. You dare to scold me?" The young man's face was extremely ugly. He was so big, he had never been scolded like this before. When Ma Wu, yes, young Master Wasp. The two guards behind the young man stepped forward respectfully and replied, "Catch this nasty little girl for me, and see how I teach her later." HMPH, you're not a good person at first sight. Fighting, right? I like it. Xiao Wu rubbed her fists, jumped in an instant, and even attacked first. Behind her, Hu Jiu had already drawn out his hammer, and a sinister smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Chaos Cloak Hammer power up begins. Hu Jiu did not participate in the battle between Xiao Wu and the two guards. Not only did he not participate, but instead he quietly retreated and hid to the side, accumulating the strength of the hammer. This is the case with the Chaotic Cloak Hammer method. Although it has reached the 8th level, it has not changed the essence of the hammer method. He still needs to accumulate power with one hammer and one hammer, but at this time, the power that can be increased with each hammer is not as simple as doubling. That's a jump from doubling, quadrupling. In just 10 hammers, 500 kilograms of strength have been accumulated. This power is enough. Glancing at Xiao Wu, who was using his agility to entangle the two guards, Hu Jiu shouted loudly, "Xiao Wu, get out of the way." Hearing Hu Jiu shout. Xiao Wu naturally knew what he was going to do. She quickly flipped a few times in the air and quickly spread to the side. Yo, I almost forgot about your child and caught it with me. The young wasp was also attracted by Hu Jiu's loud shout, but he didn't take Hu Jiu seriously at all. In his opinion, it was surprising enough to have an nimble Xiao Wu. It is impossible for this kind of genius to appear 2 times at the same time interval. Unfortunately, he seems to have miscalculated point here. Hu Jiu's feet were filled with soul power. His body was like a cloud of blue smoke coming to the 2 guards. The small hammer in his hand was raised high, and in an instant, the 2 of them only felt a force that was so huge that it was impossible to breathe. Come on, then I don't know anything. Boom. With a strength of more than 500 katas, how could 2 great spirit masters of only more than 20 levels be able to resist? He was bombarded by Hu Jiu on the spot and flew out like rags, not knowing his life or death. Kill. After blasting the 2 guards, Hu Jiu didn't stop. His eyes shot at the wasp with murderous intent. Xiao Wu is his person, and he has long been regarded as a ban, but someone dares to attack her. She is simply courting death. Don't come here. Hu Jiu's murderous aura caused the wasp to be paralyzed to the ground. He kept kicking under his feet, and his body kept retreating. Obviously, he had been scared and collapsed by Hu Jiu's methods. Now, even the martial spirit didn't dare to release it. Hu Jiu was not a soft-hearted person. He had no intention of keeping his hand at all. He went straight down with a hammer and ended the battle. Sure. Enough. Women are a disaster. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 10 Years Soul Ring. It's so unfortunate that we came to Mato City and we killed the son of the city lord. I don't know if the city lord of Mato has only one son. If it is the only son, the feud will be a big one. Beside the fire, Hu Jiu said, while fiddling with the branches. It has been more than half a day since he killed the wasps. I remember at that time, because there were many people watching the fun, it was impossible for him to kill all the witnesses. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, he took Xiao Wu all the way. Hurry up, and finally came to the edge of the monster forest. According to the itinerary, they should have rested in Mato City at this time. Unfortunately, the plan did not change quickly. It's all my fault. If it weren't for me, I'm afraid Xiao Jiu, you've reached your destination safely. Beside, Xiao Wu looked at Hu Jiu aggrievedly and said, self-blame. What nonsense are you talking about? You can accompany me to hunt for spirit rings. I'm too happy. How can I blame you? Hu Jiu smiled and rubbed Xiao Wu's head. By the way, take your expression away. Please don't pretend to be so fake when you're wronged. Humph. Bad Hu Jiu, you know how to make fun of me. Xiao Wu returned to her normal expression, waving her fist fiercely. By the way, I'm serious. Today we killed the son of the city lord. Will it bring you unnecessary trouble? Immediately, Xiao Wu seemed to think of something, and instantly became a little depressed. Haha, it's not too much trouble. Take a night off today, and tomorrow we'll go directly to the monster forest. Just leave after hunting the spirit ring. In this way, even if the toilet city owner wants to find us, it will not be so easy. Yeah. Xiao Wu nodded heavily. Her heart was ruthless. If they really came, she must protect Xiao Jiu's safety. After a night of rest, the two came to the monster forest early the next morning. Along the way, occasionally you can see animals appear. Yes, because the monster forest is too low level, there are many animals living here, not even soul beasts. Wow. Look at Xiao Jiu. There is a monster with human hands. Xiao Wu suddenly cried out in surprise. This is the ever-changing monster. Maybe I didn't know when I saw a human, so I changed my hand. Hu Jiu laughed. This variety monster is a bit naughty. Next, there will be more changeable monsters, some with their heads turned into branches, some with cat faces, and those with fox tails. All kinds of strange shapes can appear from the changeable monsters. It's a pity that these ever-changing monsters encountered are too low level. Not even soul beasts, so they are of little use value. The variety monster is a mollusk, like a large jelly, soft, with greasy mucus on its body, and its body is full of acid, which cannot be eaten at all, and other animals avoid them. Gradually, they came to the core gathering place of the variety monsters. Hey, why is there a tiger among the monsters? It's so strange. Standing in the distance, Xiao Wu looked at the tiger in the middle of the monsters in confusion. Xiao Wu, it's our target. Can't you see it? It's also a monster, and it's a 10-level soul beast. Beside him, Hu Jiu looked at the tiger in the distance in surprise. His second spirit ring was on it. Raising the hammer, the soul power under his feet was activated, and Hu Jiu led bursts of phantoms to charge at the tiger variety monster. To deal with the 10-year soul beast, there is no need for any skills, just recklessness. The current Hu Jiu's physical fitness is at the 20th level. Although he is not as good as a spirit master of the same level, he is simply crushing against those who are weaker than him. Die for me. The appearance of Hu Jiu caused a riot in the variety monsters group, and many weak variety monsters were disturbed by the aura on his body and fled in all directions. Only the monstrous king, who had become a soul beast, when he saw Hu Jiu rushing towards it, actually leaned down, landed on all fours, and issued a whining warning sound. It's a pity that Hu Jiu has always behaved inhumanly during the battle. As long as he is determined to be the enemy, he will not let him go. The iron hammer roared, and a hammer slammed into the head of the variety monster king. Roar. Facing the oncoming iron hammer, the variety monster king roared wildly, kicked on the ground with 4 feet, and jumped back instantly, dodging Hu Jiu's attack. Then, in the blink of an eye, the body began to shrink and transform, the head became smaller, and the feathers of unknown birds appeared on the body. No, it's trying to escape. Xiao Wu, help me entangle it. The king of variety is so fast that even Hu Jiu can't keep up. A backward jump, and in the blink of an eye, it instantly becomes a big bird, surprisingly fast. Hey, look at me. Waist bow. Xiao Wu next to her didn't need Hu Jiu's orders at all, but she stayed by Hu Jiu's side all the time, just in case. In a blink of an eye, when Hu Jiu had just withdrawn the hammer and was about to attack again, Xiao Wu had already leaped out and came to the variety monster, who had turned into a big bird. The ever-changing monster with only 10 years of cultivation is no match for Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu simply slapped her hands, and the next second she grabbed Big Bird's neck. Haha, Xiao Wu is doing well. At this time, Hu Jiu had come to Xiao Wu's side, swung the hammer in his hand, and slammed the hammer towards it. In an instant, his body had turned into a half-snake body, and he was ready to escape again. Strange. I'm Sister Xiao Wu. Of course I'm good. Xiao Wu raised her chin proudly, and gave Hu Jiu a pretty smile. However, this variety monster is really interesting. It would be great if you could get such an ability. Xiao Wu was a little jealous about the variety monster's ability to change. The means of dealing with them just now have already proved the excellence of this ability. It's a pity that, although the Soul Master can obtain the ability to change from the variegated monster, it is too weak. He can only simply change a little face shape, and he can't even change into another person completely, which is simply tasteless. Haha, Xiao Wu, have you forgotten? My spirit ring improves very quickly. Maybe in 100 years or 1,000 years, I will be able to become a versatile monster. At that time, it may also turn you into something else. Animals. Although, I know that this possibility is not very big, but it is not possible for 1,000 years. What about 10,000 years or 100,000 years? With the changing ability of the variety monster, Hu Jiu can play with flowers. At this moment, a pale white spirit ring appeared from the body of the variety monster, and its pale color was only about 10 years old. Xiao Wu looked at this spirit ring with disgust, and said hesitantly, Xiao Jiu, have you thought about it? Do you really want to use it as your second spirit ring? Originally, Xiao Wu knew about this situation a long time ago. She thought that she was mentally prepared, but she really disliked seeing such a low-level spirit ring appear. Haha, isn't this what we said a long time ago? Don't delay, you help me protect the law. I will absorb the spirit ring first. Hu Jiu looked at the spirit ring without hesitation, and there was even a hint of joy on his face. Xiao Wu, I sacrificed the second spirit ring for your safety. Chapter 29 Change Skills. It was only a 10-year spirit ring that Hu Jiu absorbed easily, and the absorption and fusion were completed in just 5 minutes. Sure enough, the 10-year limited variety spirit skill is rubbish. It seems that we still have to wait for the on-hook panel to upgrade. Feeling that there was not much increase in soul power in the body, Hu Jiu secretly said. Speaking of the hang-up panel, Hu Jiu immediately saw a Raja blue panel with a little golden light flickering on the panel, and a second spirit ring hang-up position began to appear next to the first spirit ring hang-up position. Taking advantage of the time when the hang-up position was open, he studied the second spirit ring skill he had acquired. The second spirit ring skill is called change. This is known for a long time. As for the effect, it is to partially adjust one's own muscles, thereby changing the appearance. The effect is very weak, suitable for stealing chickens and dogs, but in his heart, Hu Jiu thought of another use of this skill. Change your own muscles. In addition to the face, there are other places. For example, change the muscles on the body, and change the density of your own muscles. Does this increase your physical fitness in disguise? There is also the nervous system. Is it possible that the nerves are strengthened to speed up their own reactions? While Hu Jiu was thinking about it, the second spirit ring hang-up position had been successfully opened. In an instant, the image of the second spirit ring appeared on the hang-up panel. The 10-year spirit ring lifespan is not less than 1 year, and not less than a year looking at the age of his 2 spirit rings. Hu Jiu was a little amused. The first spirit ring is currently 606 years old, while the second spirit ring is only 10 years old. Isn't this the opposite? Jiu, how is it? Does the new skill work? Seeing Hu Jiu open his eyes, Wu, who was protecting him, asked expectantly. Shaking his head, Hu Jiu said, as usual, the effect is not very good, but it is also expected. After speaking, Hu Jiu's face began to be covered with a layer of light red light. Under the light of the light, his appearance changed slightly. His nose was elongated, the corners of his eyes were enlarged, and his chin was a little rounder. With such a small change, at a glance, I thought it was Tang San. Jiu. This is so interesting. If you weren't someone who knew Tang San very well, you would have thought you were him. Wu applauded. Give me a carrot to taste, and I'll help you see the effect. Facing Wu's expectant gaze, Hu Jiu stretched out his right hand and activated the second spirit ability change. A light red carrot slowly appeared in his hand. His carrot martial spirit is very advantageous, and he can be used as a plant type soul master as well as a food type soul master. When he was a plant type, his soul skills acted on him. He didn't need to eat carrots. He could use his skills with a single thought, and it lasted for a long time. As a food type soul master, he could apply his skills to carrots and give them to others to take. In this way, others could also use his skills, but the duration would be relatively reduced. The current second soul skill change can make people change their appearance for half a day after use. During the effective time of the skill, multiple modifications can be made until the end of the duration. Jiu, your carrots are even more delicious. Can't wait to eat Hu Jiu's carrots. Wu squinted her eyes happily. Her eyes narrowed into a cute crescent shape. After eating the carrots, Wu's appearance also changed slightly. Her eyes became smaller and longer, her nose became thicker, her lips became thicker and larger, and her face began to lengthen. She became Hu Jiu. How is it? Do I look like your sister? No. Do I look like your sister? After changing her appearance, Wu asked mischievously. Haha, it's just like a younger sister. Wu, you are too young. Hu Jiu laughed. HMPH, it's my sister. Wu said, unconvinced. Well, anything will do. If you want to play, you will have a chance. Now we should go. Maybe City Lord Matto is sending someone to look for us. Hu Jiu patted Wu's head and reminded, then, what are you waiting for? Let's go quickly, or we will be in trouble when they find us. Hearing Hu Jiu's reminder, Wu suddenly woke up. Both of them are 20th level Great Soul Masters. Although Hu Jiu is an auxiliary soul master, his physical fitness is not weak due to his practice of the shattered cloak hammer technique. As the two of them ran with all their strength, bursts of whistling sounded in their ears. is rushing to Notting City at a very fast speed. On the way, Hu Jiu looked at Xiao Wu with a teasing face. With a smirk, he asked, Xiao Wu, I already got my spirit ring, aren't you also at level 20? You helped me hunt for the spirit ring, and I'll help you next. No. Xiao Wu refused without thinking, and then realized that there was something wrong with her attitude. He hurriedly looked at Hu Jiu apologetically, and stammered and explained, my second spirit ring has already been arranged, and I will get it in a few days, so I won't bother you. Hey, what's the matter? You've helped me so many times. You must tell me if you need it, and I will definitely help you. Hu Jiu had a big expression on his face, but he was secretly laughing. He didn't know where he was. Xiao Wu doesn't need to hunt for spirit rings at all. They are 100,000-year-old spirit beasts. Once the level reaches, they can naturally obtain spirit rings, which is very convenient. Judging from the spirit power aura on Xiao Wu's body, she might already have a second spirit ring, but she just didn't tell him. It seems that the little rabbit is not honest. Haha. No, it's really not necessary. Xiao Wu smiled shyly. Okay. Hu Jiu was about to speak when suddenly his ears moved, and his brows wrinkled. Xiao Wu, come this way. There is a situation ahead. Through sound and touch, he had already sensed that there was danger ahead. There are the people against whom this danger is directed. Fortunately, Hu Jiu was sensitive. Otherwise he would have collided with them. If he went straight ahead. Pulling Xiao Wu away from the road, the two plunged into the grass and disappeared into the road. A mile away, two middle-aged men dressed as spirit masters were rushing towards Hu Jiu's original direction. One of them had a wild dog's beard on his face. At this time, he was waving his nose from time to time, as if he was sniffing something. Xiao Wu, hurry up, they are following. Hu Jiu was a little anxious, and the two people behind him had a deep spirit power aura. Judging from the level, only those spirit masters above the 30th level had such a strong aura point, and he and Xiao Wu are only level 20, so they are not necessarily opponents one-on-one. After all, although the battle of the ranks is refreshing, but it involves taking risks. Hu Jiu, who has always been steady, does not want to kill the enemy by leaping the ranks. He only likes to crush the weak. Can't you let it go, Xiao Jiu? Why don't we fight with them? Beside her, Xiao Wu was eager to try. She wasn't afraid of any battle if she could beat it. Let's talk about it after a fight. Fighting your head, even if you can't escape. Wouldn't it be fragrant to have an ambush? Chapter 30 Return. Xiao Wu, we won't run away. Fuck him. After running for a quarter of an hour, Hu Jiu found helplessly that, although he could spot the enemies in advance, he couldn't get rid of them. I have used a lot of methods to avoid tracking, but it doesn't work. In desperation, Hu Jiu was ruthless, and decided to deal with these two enemies in front of a low mound. Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu hid together, preparing to attack. Xiao Wu, it's still an old tactic. Later, you go out to hold the enemy, and I will sneak attack next to me, and try to kill them. Hu Jiu's eyes surfaced with murderous intent. Facing the enemy, he would never be soft-hearted. Okay, look at me. Xiao Wu patted her chest confidently, full of fighting spirit. Dodging was never her style. Fighting was if it wasn't for worrying about Hu Jiu's safety. She would have turned around and fought the enemy to the death. Attention, they're here. A few minutes later, Hu Jiu's eyes narrowed, the hammer in his hand clenched tightly, and the random cloak hammer method was always on standby. Vaguely, in the line of sight from 100 meters away, two figures appeared, and were tracking in their direction. Maid, these two children can't be rabbits. Can they run like this? Hearing that someone said they were rabbits, Hu Jiu glanced at Xiao Wu, who was bending over and kicking her legs, always ready to attack. This is the real rabbit. When the two quickly came to the small mound where they were hiding, Xiao Wu kicked her hind legs and her figure leaped out like an electric light, approaching the spirit master with a wild dog's beard. At first glance, this spirit master was of the reconnaissance type, and his frontal combat ability was not strong, and it was precisely because of him that they never got rid of the enemy. So the first one to get rid of was him. How courageous. Behind the wild dog spirit master, another spirit master suddenly turned his head when Xiao Wu was about to approach, shouted loudly, his spirit possessed. Two fangs were exposed at the corners of his mouth, and a humming sound came from his mouth. Sound point. His martial spirit is a wild boar. However, in the face of the roar of the wild boar spirit master, Xiao Wu was unmoved. A somersault, and the two long straight legs were already cut to the enemy's neck point. At the same time, Hu Jiu, who was hiding behind Xiao Tupo, did not care whether he would be exposed or not. The tiger danced with a hammer, accumulating power round after round. Point. With the chaotic cloak hammer technique, the more hammers swiped in a row, the greater the accumulated power. As long as he is given enough time, let alone two soul masters, he is not afraid of the soul sect. Point. With the help of the spirit of the wild boar spirit, Xiao Wu's sneak attack did not succeed, but with her agility, she has successfully entangled the enemy. Point. Next, we have to look at Hu Jiu. Point. Because of the sudden attack, the two middle-aged spirit masters didn't have time to think about other things, nor did they find Hu Jiu, who was hiding behind a small mound, to accumulate strength. Point. One hammer after another. In less than half a minute, Hu Jiu has accumulated more than 50 hammers in a row, and he is still continuing. 58, 59, 60. Hu Jiu kept moving, silently counting the number of random cloak hammers, until he was over 60 hammers. His body had begun to sweat, and his muscles were knotted. This is still an auxiliary soul master, saying that he is a war soul. Teachers all believe it. Little dance. When the 75 hammers hit, Hu Jiu finally reached the limit, and could no longer maintain the accumulated strength. Point. The 8th level chaotic cloak hammer method, until the time of the 9981 hammer, has a power of 5,000 kilograms of its own, and with his current small body, he can't bear it at all. Point. However, the 75th hammer is not bad. It has a power of more than 2,000 katis. The enemy failed to interrupt his big move in advance. This is the biggest mistake. Point. With the hammerhead in front, there was a sound of thunderstorms, and the ground was blown away by his violent energy. Give me death. With this hammer, Hu Jiu didn't even look at who the enemy was, but after confirming that Xiao Wu left, he bombarded it. Point. Rumble. Point. The earth trembled, and the place where it passed was like plowing cattle. Point. Hu Jiu didn't want to know either. Xiao Jiu, your punching technique is amazing again. Xiao Wu's expression on the side was shocked, and this attack power is probably comparable to Soul Sect. Let's go. The movement here is a bit loud, and it's easy to attract enemies. Let's go quickly. Feeling the empty soul power in this body, Hu Jiu felt a little empty in his heart. Without strength, he always felt unsafe at all point. Although the soul power in the body is empty, but the physical quality is still there, and the running is not slow at all. 2 hours later, he and Xiao Wu had already left the territory of Macho City and stepped into the territory of Notting City. Okay, Xiao Wu, the people from Macho City can't catch up with us. Hu Jiu slowed down and walked slowly at a normal speed. Thinking about it, he was just a small city lord. It was a great thing to be able to hire a spirit master at the level of a spirit master. After all, the strength of the investigation system spirit master was not strong, and few of them could grow up. Xiao Jiu, I also want to learn your hammering technique. Thinking about how Xiao Wu would be holding a hammer and hammering people in the future, Hu Jiu hesitated. My hammering method was passed down to me by Xiao's father. If you want to learn it, wait until you meet Uncle Tang Heo in the future. Just ask him. Xiao Wu was only shocked by the powerful attack power of the random cloak hammering technique. When it really arrived, it was estimated that Xiao Wu would no longer like it. Moreover, how can the chaotic cloak hammer technique be so well practiced? Just look at Tang San. Even though he has seen the power of the high realm chaotic cloak and practiced diligently, he is still at the level of 64 hammers. At this time he is useless at all except for the last hammer. That is worth seeing. Oh, forget it. I won't look for Tang San's father. Xiao Wu snorted arrogantly, with a look of disdain. The current relationship between her and Tang San is not that good. If it wasn't for Hu Jiu's relationship, they would have fought long ago. Haha, it's just a hammering technique. As long as your cultivation is high, how can you use such trouble? The Random cloak is really troublesome. Before the charging is completed, the attack power is not high at all, especially when it is used in a battle against time. Just like this time, if Hu Jiu was not cautious and let Xiao Wu show up in advance to attract the attention of the enemy, there is simply no time to charge up to the level of 75 hammers. That's not right. This hammer technique is rubbish. As long as the enemy knows your hammer technique characteristics in advance, there is no chance to use it. Xiao Wu raised her chin, showing her disdain. Well, Xiao Wu is right. While nodding in approval, Hu Jiu was also thinking about the effect of his next spirit ring. Just like Xiao Wu said, the chaotic cloak hammer is strong, but it requires the time to unfold the hammer, and it cannot be interrupted in advance. Therefore, a skill that can dodge enemy attacks at will is very necessary. For the first time, Xiao Wu's teleportation skills appeared in his mind, and this skill seems to be possessed by Lightning Rabbit. I just don't know if Xiao Wu will let him kill. After all, Lightning Rabbit is also a rabbit. Chapter 31. Tang San is angry. In addition to teleportation, he thought of flying. The skill of flying was very useful before becoming a titled Douluo. After all, many spirit masters did not have flying skills, nor did they have air-to-air skills. They could fly, and would have a great advantage in battle. Even in titled Douluo, there is a big difference in speed between those with flying skills and those without. But these are things that will happen in the future. Now that he is only level 20, it is too early to think about the next realm. In the next few days, Hu Jiu and the two did not encounter any trouble, and it took 4 days to return to the academy. Before Hu Jiu could rest, Tang San hurried over. He came with a look of anger. Haha, little San, long time no see. Hu Jiu greeted awkwardly. Humph, you really did. You left without making a sound. Do you know how worried I am? Tang San still looked at Hu Jiu with a cold face. He didn't expect Hu Jiu to be so daring and dare to run alone to hunt for spirit rings. Oh, it seems that he didn't go alone. There was also a small dance point, but Xiao Wu is stronger than him. Can he fight without him? In Tang San's opinion, without his protection, Hu Jiu should not go out. Haha, isn't it in a hurry to leave? Next time, I will tell you in advance next time. Hu Jiu snorted. Haha, have you got the spirit ring? Tang San felt a little resentful. Needless to say, he knew, with Hu Jiu's character, how could he come back if he didn't achieve his goal? Well, there are 72 skills, and you can do anything when you cultivate to the highest realm. This is a magical skill. Hu Jiu's expression was excited, as if he had picked up a huge bargain. Tell me if it's a 10-year spirit ring. Also, what is the effect of the current skill? Tang San looked at him faintly, waiting for an answer. Little San, it's not really important right now, isn't it? We have to look forward, not just focus on what's in front of us. Hu Jiu smiled stiffly, and then changed the subject bluntly. Little San, I have a new idea, you can help me refer to it. Although he clearly knew that Hu Jiu was changing the subject, Tang San also knew that it was enough to stop, so his tone calmed down. What are you thinking? You should also know the effect of the changing skills of the variety monster. It is indeed weak in the early stage, but it is not ineffective. I think that the ability to change can be applied to the muscles to make them stronger. So can you improve your strength? Hu Jiu looked at Tang San, expecting him to approve of his own thoughts. This was the idea that came to his mind. If Tang San didn't come, maybe he would start experimenting. You can try it. I think your idea is feasible. Even though he knew that Hu Jiu's mind would come up with some bizarre ideas from time to time, Tang San was still surprised every time he heard it. Many times, Tang San was stunned by his wild ideas. Okay, then I'll do some research. Hu Jiu smiled, and finally heaved a sigh of relief. This level seemed to be over. It wasn't that he was afraid of Tang San. The main reason was that Tang San didn't have bad intentions for him. The reason he was so angry with him was because he cared about him, fearing that his spirit ring choice would affect his future development. All this, Hu Jiu understood, but with some consideration, he couldn't tell Tang San, which also caused the current situation. After Tang San left, Hu Jiu lay on the bed and began to test his transformation skills first of all, starting with the skin, under the monitoring of his amazing 5 senses. It is not difficult to increase the density of the skin point. The light red light circulated on the skin, and I could feel the tightness from the skin point raising his arms. Hu Jiu instantly became more confident when looking at the tightened skin point. What about trash spirit rings? There are only trash spirit masters, and there are no trash spirit rings. By the way, the nerves can also be changed. After the nerves become bigger and stronger, the body's reaction speed will definitely be strengthened, but the nerves can't be tried randomly. Take your time. Next, Hu Jiu began to make other attempts, and he tried to strengthen everything he had on his body through changes. Fortunately, his transformation skills are still very weak, otherwise something would have happened long ago. By experimenting, he also found multiple uses of the changing skill. 4. Example, strengthening the skin at the beginning, making the skin denser, and improving the anti-strike ability in disguise. And by changing the calf muscles, he can run faster. Change the nervous system of both hands to make his hands faster. In just one night of trying, he developed multiple uses of his changing skills. The next day, Xiao and others who had been waiting eagerly for Hu Jiu's return ran to the door eagerly, waving gold soul coins in his hand. He requested to buy his accelerated cultivation carrot. Only after trying Hu Jiu's martial soul effect can he know how amazing his skill effect is. Just like turning on an accelerator. When cultivating, you can feel the pleasure of flying with your soul power. Let the practice become no longer hard, but can enjoy the joy of practice. For the past 6 months, because they have been eating Hu Jiu's carrots, their cultivation has improved a lot. Among them, Liu Long and Ling Feng were promoted to 4 levels respectively, to become 15th level spirit masters, while Xiao was even more powerful and directly improved to 5 levels, to become 16th level spirit masters. This speed of improvement was something they had never thought of. In a few months, they will graduate. It is said that several intermediate spirit master academies have contacted them in advance, promising to let them enroll for free. They have never enjoyed this kind of treatment. Therefore, for the initiator of all this, it is even more enthusiastic. 9th. Brother, you're back. Are you still safe along the way? I knew you would be out for so long, so we went with you. After so long, we all miss you. Xiao licked his face and said in front of Jiu. There was no pretense to be the son of the city lord. I think you guys miss my carrots. Don't you remember that I prepared enough carrots for you before I left? Why did you finish eating them so quickly? Hu Jiu entertained them with a smile. These people are his cash cows. So far, he has earned hundreds of thousands of gold soul coins from the 3 of them. Even if he spends more generously, he still has a lot of money. There are more than 500 gold soul coins left. He felt that when he had more money in the future, he would buy a soul tool for storage. He was very greedy for Tang San's 24 bridges bright moonlight night. However, the storage type soul tool is a bit expensive. He has already inquired about it. Even a soul tool with the smallest space requires tens of thousands of gold soul coins. The money he currently earns is not even a fraction. 9th. Brother, as you know, we are all graduating soon. In order to get into a better college in the future, we have extended our practice time. In the past, 1 hour of practice a day was almost enough. Now at least 5 or 6 hours. Your carrots are not enough. Eat it, Liu. Long's tone was a little resentful, but it wasn't because they wanted to work hard. The main reason was that the spirit power cultivation had improved too fast recently, which made their family see hope and felt that they could be rescued, so they forced to increase their daily practice time. Haha, that's right. Look at your 9th brother and me, 1 day apart from studying his cultivation, and in less than a year, I broke through to become a great soul master. As I said, you should really work hard. Wait for the future. The cultivation base is high. If nothing else, at least being a nobleman is not a problem. Hu Jiu encouraged. Work hard. The harder you work, the more gold soul coins he can earn. Has Hu Jiu worked hard? The 3 of Xiao looked at each other in dismay, as if they only saw him playing around with Miss Wu every day, and the entire Notting City was played by them. Chapter 30. To the days when Xiao Wu was gone. Well, if you are lucky, with my current soul power, even if you practice all day, I can satisfy you, as long as you can afford it. Hu Jiu nodded. He was a bastard, if he had money or not. With his 20th level Great Spirit Master's cultivation, he could make nearly 100 carats for accelerated cultivation at one time, and it would not be a problem to make 1,000 carats in one day. Point in terms of quick money, is there anything better than a food type soul master? If it weren't for the fear of a big tree attracting wind, he would have expanded his customer base long ago. We have money. Xiao Chenyu took out a bag of gold soul coins and handed it directly to Hu Jiu. We have it too. It's mine. Not to be outdone, Liu Long and Ling Feng took out their wallets, although it hurts a bit. In order to speed up the cultivation speed, they also recognized it. Besides, these three are rich, second generation rich, and it is no problem to use them to buy carrots. Okay, 30 per person. Come find me when you run out. After collecting money to do things, Hu Jiu made 100 carrots at one time. More than that, it was a discount for them. Anyway, his carrots don't need a cost. They just consume some soul power, and they will recover naturally after a while. By the time Xiao Chenyu and the three of them left with great gratitude, it was already night. In the bedroom, Wang Sheng and others had already returned from school. After everyone met, there was no shortage of small talk. In the 7 houses of working students, his status is a bit special. These people are all Xiao Wu's younger brothers now, and he has a close relationship with Xiao Wu, and he is not weak to strengthen his fighting power, and he has the demeanor of the second master. Well, it can also be said that it is due to Xiao Wu's potential. This soft rice is eaten. Hey. The next day, Xiao Wu came to him pitifully. Xiao Jiu, I'm going out to hunt for spirit rings. It's estimated that this time I will be away for more than half a month. You can't make me hungry, right? Hurry up and give me carrots. Why does it take so long? You can eat so much. I'm afraid you won't be able to eat it for long, even if you take it with you. The little rabbit is also true. Obviously can make a spirit ring by himself. Spend most of the day. Just make up a reason not to do it, and you have to leave for so long. Suddenly, Hu Jiu found himself a little reluctant. How about I accompany you with me here? You can eat as much as you want, as long as you can. After thinking about it, Hu Jiu tried it out. Obviously, Xiao Wu will be away for so long this time, so she will definitely be in the Great Stardao Forest. If Xiao Wu asked him to follow him, he could justifiably discover Xiao Wu's identity. After Xiao Wu confessed, he generously stated that he didn't care about Xiao Wu's identity. In this way, wouldn't the relationship between him and Xiao Wu go further? Unfortunately, although Hu Jiu had a good idea, Xiao Wu did not agree. I saw her looking at Hu Jiu with an embarrassed expression. No, Xiao Jiu. This time I went home and asked my relatives to help hunt soul beasts. They don't like to see outsiders. I'm afraid they will be angry when they see you. Sure. Enough. The idea of seeing the parents came to nothing. In this regard, Hu Jiu didn't insist too much. To be honest, if he really asked him to see Daming now, he was still a little guilty. Okay, wait for me. I'll make you more carrots. You can save some. Xiao Wu left for a while. Without Xiao Wu by his side, he found that he seemed a little unaccustomed. After all, he had been with Xiao Wu for more than half a year, and now there was a chirping voice suddenly missing from his ears, and his heart felt empty. However, the reluctant expression on Xiao Wu's departure made Hu Jiu feel dark. It seemed that she still had a place in Xiao Wu's mind. Sure enough, this work-study place in the Holy Soul Village has additional benefits. After a morning of boring classes, Hu Jiu and Tang San reunited. Little San, come on. We haven't fought for a long time. Let's fight. For a long time, Hu Jiu was not interested in fighting. He was only interested in crushing the enemy. Many times Tang San's invitations to battle have been rejected by him. With this time, it would be nice to play happily with Xiao Wu. Now that Xiao Wu was away, in order to avoid boredom and improve her fighting ability, Hu Jiu took the initiative to invite her. You want to fight me? Tang San looked at him in surprise. Those eyes seemed to be doubting. whether Hu Jiu had a brain problem. Little San, I warn you, don't look at me like this. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning your face. Hu Jiu looked annoyed. He had already decided in his heart that he would definitely give Tang San a hard time later, preferably the kind that couldn't get up for a long time. Okay, I was wrong. Seeing Hu Jiu's anger, Tang San simply admitted his mistake. But Jiu, do you know how high a level I'm now? Faced with the question, Hu Jiu was stunned for a moment and instantly thought in his mind that Tang San said earlier that he would go hunting for spirit rings with the master and the dean. Counting the time, it seems that the time to obtain the second spirit ring is longer than him. Be quick. This carefully sensed the spirit power in Tang San's body and found that it had indeed skyrocketed a lot. The level was already 21, close to 22. Fight. I'm afraid you won't succeed. You'll find your teeth all over the place to see how I will beat you. Hu Jiu gritted his teeth hard. If he couldn't beat him, he had to fight. I remembered that Tang San's second spirit ring skill was parasitic. With his 6th level spirit power manipulation ability, covering his body with a layer of spirit power was a simple operation. So, under the condition of preparation, Tang San's second spirit ability is rubbish. Haha, then come on. Jiu, don't cry in a while. Tang San laughed. For a long time, Tang San was actually unconvinced. Hu Jiu had already reached the realm of a great master in the same way of cultivating the shackled cloak hammering technique, but he still hadn't even achieved the full 81 hammering point. There is also soul power manipulation, which is also practiced together. Hu Jiu has already manipulated his own soul power to the level of subtlety, but he has just completed the water treading training point. If it were just these, it would be fine. After all, this is a person's innate talent, and Tang San is not someone who can't afford to lose point. But please take a look at the normal cultivation situation of the two of them. Tang San had very little time to play every day and night, racing against the clock to hurry up and practice. And Hu Jiu is good every day in that little Wu chat with me. I have not seen him how to cultivate with such a response. How could Tang San be convinced? Could it be that he, Hu Jiu, is the illegitimate son of God? So am I. Am I not innately full of soul power? Could it be that I remember correctly? It was Jiu's awakening innate full of soul power. Tang San is confused. On the hillside behind the college. Hu Jiu and Tang San stood opposite each other. One stood with his hands behind his back. The other clenched the hammer. It's like a pair of peerless masters are about to fight to the death. Full of style. Jiu, come on. We've been standing for a long time. You should take action. Tang San said helplessly. Quack. Quack. A crow flew by, as if mocking the silly behavior of the two. What are you panicking about? Young people just need to keep their composure. Hu Jiu said slowly. At the same time, the hammer in his hand quickly swung in circles, and the chaotic cloak hammer method unfolded. Chapter 33 Battle. On Tang San's side, seeing Hu Jiu's skillful circling movement, he showed his winding skills without even thinking about it. He didn't dare to let Hu Jiu's random cloak hammer technique unfold, and even he was afraid of Hu Jiu's realm in hammer technique. Tang San is familiar with his moves, so why not Hu Jiu? Seeing Tang San's action, Hu Jiu used his spirit power to his feet, running quickly, dodging the blue-silver grass vines flying out of the ground. At the same time, the second soul skill changed and blessed on the calf, changing the muscle strength of the calf. The next moment after the skill was added, Hu Jiu's figure began to drift, and Hu Jiu's figure was everywhere on the lawn, which made people dazzled. It's a pity that Tang San is not an ordinary person. The purple magic pupil opened, making Hu Jiu's figure invisible in front of him. The ghosts and shadows were running under the feet, and the figure was erratic like Hu Jiu. Hey, little San, it's already 5 hammers. Seeing Tang San approaching, Hu Jiu didn't panic at all. His hands quickened, taking the opportunity to accumulate hammering skills to the level of 6 hammers. Hu Jiu's words were merely Tang San's brows wrinkling, and then he kept moving forward. Vaguely, Tang San's hands had turned white jade, looking crystal clear. Come on, let me see your strength. Hu Jiu narrowed his eyes, feeling that he had accumulated more than 300 pounds of strength, and he was full of confidence. Little San, Little San, do you think my hammering technique requires 81 hammers to accumulate 300 pounds? Madness. Boom. With a smack, Tang San's figure flew far away, not getting up for a long time. What? Zao. Jiu, your hammering technique. Tang San lay on the ground, unable to get up. At this time, his heart was full of shock. He knew Zao Jiu's power very well. It was impossible for him to be unable to take it down with only 6 hammers, but now the fact is in front of him. He really did not take it, and he lost completely. There is only one explanation for this situation, and that is that his hammering technique has improved again. Haha, do you see it? Recently, I realized that my random cloak hammering technique seems to have been upgraded. Hu Jiu grinned. Looking at Hu Jiu pretending to be beeping, Tang San fell silent. His own hammering technique has been carried forward by other skills are not as good as people. What are you doing? It seems that your transformation skill has been successfully tested. I feel your speed has increased. Tang San looked at Hu Jiu. He felt that he was a dull person in front of Hu Jiu. Well, the experiment is almost over. I found a lot of ways to use it, but if you want to improve the power of your skills, you still need to increase the level of the spirit ring. Glancing at the second spirit ring that had been promoted to level 20, Hu Jiu looked expectant. Only 10 years is so practical. How much can the 100 years be improved? Counting the time, it will take almost a month to upgrade, and there are still more than 2 months of school holidays, which is enough. In the next few days, Hu Jiu entered a serious state, playing with water balloons every day, and working hard to exercise the skill of soul power manipulation. At present, his attack method is nothing but the random cloak hammer method, which makes him very dissatisfied. After all, the shortcoming of the random cloak hammer method is obvious. Although he has worked hard to improve his speed and wants to make up for this shortcoming, it is still not satisfactory. Therefore, the next self-created skill spiral pill is also time to appear. If you want to create a spiral pill, the skill of soul power manipulation is essential. Because only excellent soul power control power can make soul power form a high-speed rotating sphere, thus generating violent attack power. When Zhao Wu was away, he had nothing to do, so he just calmed down and practiced hard. In just a few days of work, his soul power control ability has been greatly improved. Judging from the on-hook panel, there is only half a circle left before the next upgrade. Maybe, before Zhao Wu's return, his spiral pill skill has already been created. And his actions of playing water polo quickly attracted Tang San's curiosity. Zhao Jiu, what are you thinking? Tang San knew that once Hu Jiu made an action he couldn't understand, it would prove that there must be some new idea. Maybe it was a very practical skill. At this point, he seems to be more certain than Hu Jiu. Haha, it's nothing. I just think that our control of soul power is still too weak. I think if we condense our soul power and make it spin at a high speed, just like this water balloon, we can use our fine control ability to make it spin. Generates attack blasting ability. Hu Jiu smiled casually and explained it to Tang San without hesitation. Currently he is worrying about how to make the water balloon explode. Let Tang San, the person who has the inheritance of Tang sect's secret arts, help to take a look. Maybe it will produce different inspirations. Anyway, his advantage was hanging up. Even if Tang San learned it, his cultivation progress would never be as fast as his in front of him. Tang San will always be a younger brother. This idea is very good. How did you come up with it? Tang San was amazed by the explanation. He wanted to open Hu Jiu's head to see how long it was inside. Haha, the idea is of course good, but it seems to be a little difficult to operate. Except for the weaker ability to control spirit power, I haven't experimentally understood the specific method of this rotary blasting. In Hokage, even a simple-minded person like Naruto can learn spiral pills. There is no reason why he can't. Although others have also opened cheating devices, they are not much different in theory. If there is a specific method of operation, I'm afraid that with his current soul power control strength, he can already meet the requirements. Hearing Hu Jiu's problem, Tang San also frowned, and then he flipped through his mind to see if he had any skills in this area in the Tang sect's secret art in his previous life points. Due to the rules of the sect, he can't spread the secret skills of Tang sect, but it's okay to say a little trick. Just exchange martial arts experience with fellow practitioners. After thinking for a while, Tang San's eyes lit up. He felt that there were some skills in his crane controlling and capturing dragon art that met Hu Jiu's needs, although it is not completely in line, and the difference is not too much. I believe that with Hu Jiu's intelligence, he will definitely be able to complete his new skills. If Hu Jiu succeeded in creating this skill, maybe he could prostitute a skill for free. You must know that when the clear sky hammer cannot be used, the attack power of his blue silver grass is limited. If he has an additional attack skill, it will also be beneficial to him. Then, Tang San made a random excuse and told Hu Jiu a few little tricks in controlling crane and capturing dragon. These little tricks in Tang San's eyes made Hu Jiu's eyes gleam with brilliance. Good, brother. Hu Jiu patted Tang San's shoulder, showing gratitude. In Tang San's eyes, this may be just a few small tricks, but in Hu Jiu's eyes, this is a great treasure. With different visions, values will naturally be different. Chapter 34 Soul Power Spiral Pill. With Tang San's help, in the next few days, Hu Jiu completed the training of blasting water balloons and balls. In turn, up to now, he has been able to condense high-speed rotating spheres in his hands, but the duration is a little short, and it will dissipate in a few seconds. If you can't even maintain it for a long time, naturally you can't talk about the success of skill creation. However, I have completed the most difficult step. As long as I continue to exercise for a while, this powerful spiral pill skill will appear sooner or later. The days of concentrating on research went by very quickly. In a blink of an eye, it had been 20 days since Xiao Wu left. According to Xiao Wu, she would be able to come back in a few days. Haha, soul power spiral pill, attack. On the hillside behind the academy, Hu Jiu excitedly threw out the fuzzy ball in his hand due to the high-speed rotation. PFFT. Spiral pill hit a tree trunk a meter away, and a small piece of bark swayed and fell to the ground. This attack power is clearly visible. Haha, it's finally done. Hu Jiu didn't care whether his attack power was weak or not. He only saw that the name of Soul Power Spiral Pill had already appeared on the 5th hang-up panel on his hang-up panel. As for the unbearable attack power, there is naturally an on-hook panel to help him improve. As long as the on-hook skill level is high enough, the sky can make a whole point. At the moment, when the Soul Power Spiral Pill was successfully created, his soul power manipulation skills also reached the 7th level, and a large amount of energy manipulation perception appeared in his mind, which made him more handy in condensing the Soul Power Spiral Pill. These two skills seem to complement each other a bit. Hu Jiu felt this scene and kept it firmly in his heart. This was an important discovery, and he might be able to use it in the future. Helix Pill was successfully created, so naturally he had to find someone to show it off. But it was a pity that Xiao Wu was not there. Then only find Tang San can create this skill. Tang San has also helped him a lot without the teaching of his little skills. Although he can create this skill himself, but it is not short term. It can be done in as little as 20 days. So, in order to thank Tang San, he had to let him see his new skills. Of course, he would never admit that he wanted to show off in front of him. Tang San, look at the trick. Skillfully pushing away Tang San's dormitory, without saying a word, a spiral pill blasted past. The frightened Tang San hurriedly assumed an alert posture. Purple light flashed in his eyes, his hands turned into the color of white jade, and he folded his hands to protect his chest. Puchy, the high-speed spinning spirit power instantly smeared Tang San's body, as if a breeze was blowing his face, and it was quite cool. Xiao Jiu. Tang San was angry. He wasn't angry with Hu Jiu's sneak attack. He was afraid that his hidden weapon would appear on him. If he hadn't heard Hu Jiu shout, maybe the hidden arrow on his arm would have already greeted him. Tang San roared, and Hu Jiu's body instantly froze in place. It was only then that he remembered that Tang San was not Xiao Wu. He was a big yin beep. His body was covered with hidden weapons for murder. If these things greeted him, I'm afraid he would be crippled. Even if he didn't die, cold sweat came out unconsciously. It was the first time that I discovered that I was also daring to dare to be brothers with this man with hidden weapons. So brave. Just kidding, little San, you won't be able to afford it. Hu Jiu pretended to be nonchalant and secretly decided in his heart that he must not make such stupid actions in the future. Now it was Tang San's turn to be depressed. He couldn't tell his good brother. He almost flew out with hidden weapons all over his body just now. Who was that soul power ball you just now? Tang San pretended that nothing happened just now and asked Hu Jiu curiously. Oh, I just came to tell you that my new skill was created successfully. Since you have already seen it, then I will leave. With a wave of his hand, Hu Jiu turned and left without stopping. The atmosphere is not very good. It is suitable for showing off, but to show off, we will talk about it later anyway. With Tang San's current spirit power control ability, even if he wanted to learn this skill, he couldn't learn it, so let him be envious. Returning to Kish, he found that Xiao Chenyu and the three were waiting for him in the dormitory. You guys finished eating so soon? This is not the first time. It seems that during this period of time, a few of them have really worked hard. Ninth. Brother, if you work harder, I feel that my soul power is about to be upgraded again. Xiao Chenyu's face was full of joy. His level was almost 17. Grade 18 before graduation point at that time. With his level, even the Spirit Academy will be able to go. It's easy to talk. Someone took care of the business, and Hu Jiu naturally refused to come. Taking advantage of no one else in the dormitory, he started making accelerated cultivation carrots on the spot. Hey, what are you doing? When Hu Jiu started to make money, the door of Kish was pushed open, and a clear and familiar voice sounded. Xiao Wu. Hu Jiu raised her head in surprise. The figure standing in front of the gate was the one who was thinking about his dream. Xiao Jiu, I'm back. Xiao Wu approached with laughter, making that pretty face clearer in front of Hu Jiu. Why have you been away for so long? I miss you so much. Hu Jiu raised his hand and touched Xiao Wu's head after being stunned for a moment and said naturally, I have something else to do. You guys are busy first. Xiao Wu blushed and ran out shyly. Xiao Jiu is also true. There are outsiders here. How can they say such shameful words on the side? Xiao Chenyu and the three all looked at each other with a playful look, but they couldn't admire it in their hearts. What a good girl. It's a pity that it fell into the hands of this kid Hu Jiu. So angry. The return of Xiao Wu made Hu Jiu even more motivated. He made enough carrots in 3 strokes, and with a big wave of his hand, Xiao Chenyu and the three of them got out. And he couldn't wait to go out to find Xiao Wu. The hillside behind the academy was basically where they stayed for a long time. Hu Jiu knew that Xiao Wu was there without looking for it. Sure enough, when he passed by, Xiao Wu was sitting on the rock in a daze. What are you thinking? So ecstatic. Hu Jiu walked over and sat with Xiao Wu. In less than a month, he found that Xiao Wu seemed to have grown taller. Xiao Wu's current height was actually a little bit taller than him. It's nothing. Xiao Wu's eyes flickered, and then she smiled. Mad, could it be that Xiao Wu went back this time? Damning and those two guys said something they shouldn't have said. He was familiar with Xiao Wu and instantly guessed the reason. Probably because after returning to the Stardao Great Forest once, it reminded her of the fact that he was still a soul beast. So, there is only one solution. Come on, eat a carrot. If one is not enough, just 2, until the little rabbit forgets his identity. This book has been signed and is going through the process, seeking investment, seeking collection, seeking recommendation. What do you want? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Second Soul Ring Upgrade. Xiao Wu, let me show you something. After Xiao Wu's mood recovered, Hu Jiu stretched out her hands proudly. From nothing, a soul power ball made of pure soul power appeared. The soul power ball was spinning at high speed in Hu Jiu's hands, and the spinning airflow blew Hu Jiu's clothes. Spiral. Ball. Come out. The condensed soul power ball, after being compressed and rotated, smashed to the ground. A small pit was smashed into the ground, and the surrounding soil flew. This power is comparable to a cannonball point. This is only a zero level state. After a few days of upgrading, it is estimated that it can be used in battle. Have you seen Spiral Pill's face? At that time, if the bows are drawn from the left and right, and whoever catches the other, the attacking ability will not be inferior to that of the Spirit Master. Hey, Xiao Jiu, your skill creation succeeded. Xiao Wu's surprised eyes were filled with pride. This is a self-created skill. Ordinary spirit masters can only use the skills that come with their spirit rings in their entire lives. How could Xiao Jiu be so talented, creating skills one after another, and all of them are quite useful points, so I want to learn. Xiao Wu shouted. Let's learn it. With this skill, it's quite helpful to your fighting style. Hu Jiu nodded with a smile. But if you want to learn my spiral pill, you can still control it with your current soul power control ability. It's a little short. Work hard, and I'll teach you. When you meet your requirements, his spiral pill skill is considered an advanced skill for soul power manipulation, and it can only be learned after the soul power manipulation reaches a certain level point from the current point of view. If you want to learn spiral pills, you must be at least level 6 in soul power manipulation point in this condition, let alone Xiao Wu. Even Tang San didn't meet it. Tang San's spirit power control was almost at the 5th level, while Xiao Wu was a little lower, currently only at the 4th level, so it wasn't that easy to learn spiral pills. It's very difficult to improve the control of soul power. Xiao Wu was not happy anymore. The skills Hu Jiu created were always known to be difficult to practice. Just the series of training items for treading water training was overwhelming. Haha, that's because you're too lazy. You usually go to play and play. Look at Xiao San, he's almost up to the requirements. You have to work hard. It's not difficult to want Xiao Wu to cultivate seriously, just arouse her competitive spirit, and Tang San is a good comparison object, who makes Xiao Wu always dissatisfied with Tang San. Sure enough, hearing that Tang San's spirit power control level was higher than hers, Xiao Wu was very dissatisfied, and she didn't rest, and started training on the spot point at Xiao Wu's level. She needed help when training her soul power control point. She can walk normally on the water, and then she will train to fight on the water in this training. Hu Jiu said that he could help. The new skill spiral pill has just been completed, and if you want to use it in battle, you have to practice, so it just happens that you can train with Xiao Wu. Hu Jiu's training direction is very simple, mainly to improve the release speed and cohesion of the spiral pill. The faster the skill is cast, the smaller the condensed spiral pill, and the greater the power under the condition that the on-hook panel synchronously provided him with experience. It only took more than a day for Helix Pill to be upgraded to the 1st level. The 1st level spiral pill has been compressed to the size of a grapefruit and can be released in about a second. Then, it took about 10 days to upgrade the spiral pill to the 2nd level. At this time, the spiral pill was about the size of an apple, and it took half a second to release. On this day, the 2nd spirit ring was raised to 100 years, and became his 2nd yellow spirit ring. As for the effect of the yellow spirit ring, hey, Tang San, why are you following me? Do you want to fight? In the evening, Xiao Wu was walking on the road, turning her head suddenly, looking at Tang San who was following her. Who do you think I am? The person behind Xiao Wu came to her and asked seriously, Tang San, is there something wrong with you? You are Tang San. Why, your brain is broken. Facing Xiao Wu's unceremonious language, the person standing in front of him twitched the corners of his mouth, and in the end he couldn't help but laugh out loud. This little dance is really unfriendly to Tang San. Xiao Wu, then look at who I am. After the effect, the figure's face and figure began to change, and it soon became Hu Jiu. Xiao Jiu. Xiao Wu looked at this scene suspiciously, and immediately realized that she was tricked by Hu Jiu. However, Xiao Jiu's changing skills in the past were not so perfect. Not only did his face look exactly the same, but his body shape also changed. How can you tell the difference between me and Tang San just now? Hu Jiu asked with a smile on his face. He found that the 100-year level transformation skills are more powerful. Now not only can he perfectly transform into anyone's appearance, but even his aura doesn't make any difference. With this skill, even if he pretends to be someone else, there is no problem. Of course, the premise is it is impossible to reveal the martial spirit. The current change skills cannot change the spirit. I can't tell. Not only the appearance and body shape, but even the breath is the same. It's amazing. Wu exclaimed. Magic is right, but I don't know if the change of 100 years can hide Wu's spirit beast or a. He couldn't verify this. After all, he couldn't discover Wu's true body if he was not at the level of title Douluo. No matter whether he can hide it or not, he has decided to let Wu eat a carrot of his transformation every day in the future, in case it will be hidden. In addition to changing into someone else, the ability to change is also quite good for him to strengthen himself. The 100-year spirit ring has raised his spirit power level to 21. It can also be used on the body to strengthen his muscles, nervous system, etc. The effect is at least 5 times higher than the original. With this effect now, he knew that his choice was correct, and the spirit ring skill was worth it. At the same time, he is also looking forward to the changes after the spirit ring is upgraded to 1,000 years. Can it be perfectly transformed into someone else's spirit ring, or can it be transformed into other animals, just like the ever-changing monster? A month later, near the college holiday, the spiral pill was upgraded to the 3rd level. The condensed spiral pill was only the size of an egg, and anyone with a discerning eye could see the amazing fluctuations produced by his soul power ball. After this period of training, Wu has gained a lot, and her soul power control has reached the requirements for learning spiral pills. Currently, she is in the first training of spiral pills, bursting water balloons. There is also Tang San. He is not bad, because in addition to the control of soul power, he also needs to practice the kung fu of Zuanxi and Baolu, so his progress is not as fast as Wu, but he has also been promoted to the 6th level, and he is also in contact with the practice of spiral pills. Speaking of which, when it comes to cultivation talent, Tang San doesn't seem to be comparable to Wu, but Wu is more playful and doesn't have much thought for cultivation, so it seems that his talent is similar to that of Tang San. In the blink of an eye, Hu Jiu had been in the academy for a year, and old Jack, Hu Jiu, and Emma also came here several times now. It's time for the college holiday. Chapter 36 Homecoming. Wu, the academy is on holiday soon. How did you arrange it, Hu? Jiu looked at Wu, this time off for a month. In order to avoid being reluctant to bear Wu, he decided to fool her back to his home. I guess I'll stay in the academy. Anyway, the vacation time is not long. Wu finger touched her pink lips, again and again. Aren't you going home? Hu Jiu pretended to be surprised, and put on his body. I won't go back this time. I don't have any family, and it's not fun to go back. Wu said in a depressed mood. Wu is also a showman, right? When she left last time, she said that her family was helping to hunt for spirit rings, and now she has no family. So casual. Oh, that's a pity. I'll go home after the holiday. I'll prepare more carrots for you these few days, so that you won't have enough to eat. Hu Jiu said with a pity face. The 2 actors are working hard to perform their acting skills originally. Wu was very disappointed when she heard that she couldn't eat carrots, but soon her eyes lit up, and she thought of a very good solution. Hey, Jiu, why don't I go home with you after the holiday? Will you let me go to your house? Carrots, prepared in advance, can never be made fresh. First. She dance bunny only likes to eat fresh. Go to my house. Alright, welcome at any time. Although he was quite sure, the success of the plan still surprised Hu Jiu. After all, being with a man like Tang San wouldn't be fun with Wu. Well, then go to your house. Wu nodded affirmatively. As a rabbit, she doesn't care so much about worldly etiquette. She does many things out of her liking. She likes to eat carrots, so she is naturally very close to Hu Jiu. Perhaps this is the breeder's advantage. 3 days later, Xiao Wu, Tang San, and Hu Jiu set out on their way home together. The three of them were the 21st level Great Spirit Masters, and they traveled very fast. In just 2 hours, the Holy Spirit Village was just around the corner. Seeing the head of the Holy Spirit Village, Tang San on the side, showed expectant eyes. In this life, he longed for family affection. In the past year, he was very disappointed every time Hu Jiu's family came to visit, because his father, Tang Heo, didn't come. After a year of not seeing him, he couldn't wait to see his dad. Seeing Tang San's appearance, Hu Jiu next to him shook his head secretly. Little San, Xiao-san, you're going to be disappointed. Your father is a famous child abuser who would rather protect him secretly than meet you. Since the 5 sense enhancement technique was upgraded to the 7th level, he has often sensed Tang Heo's aura. Maybe Tang Heo didn't expect that there are people in the small elementary Soul Master Academy who have such keen senses. Of course, there is also the reason why Tang Heo didn't hide his breath carefully. Otherwise, with Hu Jiu's current cultivation, how could he find it? Wow, Xiao Jiu, is this your hometown? It's so beautiful. Xiao Wu nibbled carrots and jumped in front of her. Let's go, we'll be home soon. Hu Jiu smiled and quickened his pace. Arriving at the fork, Hu Jiu glanced at Tang San, who was a little excited and couldn't bear the blow he would suffer. After thinking about it, he decided to accompany Tang San first. Little San, I'd better go with you to see Uncle Tang Heo first. This time I bought a good wine in Notting City and came back by selling carrots to Xiao Chenai and a few others. He is now rich. Before returning home, he naturally bought a lot and bought some gifts for his family. Especially Father Hui. He almost emptied the wine in the cellar at home in order to learn Tang Heo's method of hammering with a cloak. Well, let's go together then. Tang San nodded. There was still a lot of Hu Jiu's things on his 24 bridges in the bright moonlight night. First, he went home to see his father, and then he had to go to Hu Jiu's house. On the west side of the head of the Holy Spirit Village, the three came to Tang San's house. Daddy, I'm back. Tang San rarely showed his side of a child. This was rare. He was usually as steady as a little old man. Can't wait to push the door and enter. But no one in the house responds. Suddenly, the curtain of the back room was pulled open, and old Jack's face appeared in front of several people. Grandpa, Jack, grandfather, Tang San and Hu Jiu cried out in surprise. One was real and the other was fake. Grandpa, Jack, where's my dad? Seeing old Jack, Tang San had a bad feeling in his heart and suddenly asked a little anxiously. Old Jack held a letter in his hand and looked at Tang San with a wry smile. Look, this was left by Tang Heo. He seems to have already left. Tang San hurriedly took it, staring intently at the contents of the letter with just a few lines. Tang San stared blankly for half a minute, and the expression on his face gradually became lost. Tang San, don't worry, Uncle Tang Heo will be fine. Think about the chaotic cloak hammer method. Uncle Tang Heo is not an ordinary blacksmith. He must have something to leave. You will meet sooner or later. Hu Jiu patted Tang San's shoulders, comforted him. Yeah, Dad shouldn't be an ordinary person. He leaves so suddenly. There must be something to do. I should be fine. I'll wait for him to come back at the academy. Tang San cheered up, but what was the loss on his face? Can't hide either. Grandpa, Jack, Xiao Jiu, you all go back first. I'll deliver the things to your house later. The house is a little messy. I'll tidy up first. Tang San put away the note in his hand and said to them, okay, I'll wait for you at home. Come over for dinner at night. Hu Jiu pulled old Jack, who was about to speak, shook his head, and told him not to persuade him. What Tang San needed at this moment was to be alone. They shouldn't disturb him. Leaving Tang San's house, Hu Jiu introduced Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu, this is my grandfather. You can call him Grandpa too. Grandpa, she is Xiao Wu, my good friend. She came to play at home for a few days on vacation. Xiao Wu rolled her eyes at Hu Jiu and called out obediently, Grandpa Jack. She listened to Tang San shouting like this and called Grandpa directly. She wasn't so stupid. Smelly Xiao Jiu knows how to bully people. It turned out to be Xiao Wu. The little girl is beautiful. Coming here is like your own home. If Zhao Jiu bullies you, you should tell grandpa and see if I don't teach him a lesson. Old Jack's face was kind. Such a well-behaved little girl. It would be better to be a granddaughter-in-law. Thank you Grandpa Jack. Zhao Wu stuck out her tongue to Hu Jiu and stood beside old Jack, expressing that she had support. Going home happily. Old Jack didn't go back to his house, and when his good grandson came home, he was reluctant to leave at home. Hu Jiu and Emma were already at home waiting for their son to come home. After seeing Zhao Wu, he was even more enthusiastic and left Hu Jiu, his son, to one side. Chapter 37 Meteor Hammer. In the evening, Tang San came to Hu Jiu's house. After half a day of adjustment, Tang San couldn't see the disappointment on his face. Hu Jiu took out the gift he bought from Tang San's 24 Bright Moon Bridge. Grandpa Old Jack's tobacco leaves, Dad Hu Jiu's good wine, Mom Emma's beautiful clothes. Although he blamed him for spending money, the elders were quite happy when they accepted it. Haha, it didn't cost a lot of money. Have you forgotten that my son's spirit is food, and it's easy to sell a small amount of money, so I didn't spend money indiscriminately? Hu Jiu explained with a smile. Hu Jiu briefly mentioned his earning ability. After all, he was ready. When he left, he would leave more money at home to improve his family life. After returning to the Holy Spirit village and strolling around happily with Zhao Wu for a few days, Hu Jiu began to do his own business. Since the cloaked hammer technique was upgraded to level 8, he had clearly felt that the secondary hammer that had come from Tang San's house was no longer suitable. He was light in his hand, and he couldn't fully exert his strength, which had seriously affected his strength. I didn't have time before, but now it's just right. The academy is on holiday, and Tang San, a little ironsmith, is here, and I just asked him to help me get another hammer. Well, maybe it can't be called a hammer anymore. You want a hammer with a spherical head and spikes on it? Hearing Hu Jiu's description of the weapon, his eyes on Hu Jiu changed. Isn't this a meteor hammer with a handle? How ruthless is it to come up with such a weapon? What, can I do it? Hu Jiu asked when seeing Tang San's hesitant look. No, it can be done, but are you sure you want to use this weapon? As soon as the meteor hammer came out, it was either death or injury. Tang San hoped that Hu Jiu would think about it clearly. Of course, since it's a weapon used to kill people. Of course, it's ruthless. Hu Jiu said as a matter of course. To deal with the enemy, it must be ruthless. If necessary, it is best to cut the grass and root. Talking about kindness to the enemy will make it difficult for you to live with your own life. Okay, but the weapon you want is a bit heavy. It takes a long time to hit a 100-pound hammer. Come and help me. Knowing that Hu Jiu understood what he was doing, Tang San stopped persuading him. Big brother, don't say second brother. In terms of ruthlessness, who can compare to Tang Man's hidden weapons? He himself is not a good person. Okay, I'll hit you. This hammer will help me hit a little better. I'll find some stretchable material in the future and replace the handle. The meteor hammer with the iron chain is his favorite weapon. In the face of the 7th level soul power control, the iron chain can also maintain the handle state. It's just a little bad looking. When he first thought of this weapon, a large naked man with a huge tonnage suddenly appeared in his mind, holding a meteor hammer that was bigger than his head. That scene. TSK. Blacksmithing materials are readily available. Tang San's family has them. In order to build a weapon for Hu Jiu, Tang San Fang took out all the pig iron at home and began to forge it in full swing. To build a weapon, the first thing to do is to refine pig iron. In this regard, Hu Jiu can also help. A pile of pig iron the size of a bucket was burned red by Hu Jiu and the two of them forging pig iron together with Tang San. This build, the strength of the two is fully reflected. You hit me. When Tang San thumped, although the iron block was obviously dented, it didn't look so amazing. But when Hu Jiu was beating, it was different. As soon as the hammer went down, the pig iron was like a block of mud in his hand. A hole and a hole with each hammer. Every time the hammer goes down, there will be a loud noise, followed by the vibration of the beating table. Every time the hammer goes down, the ground of Tang San's house trembles, and the dust on the roof falls down. This scene caused Tang San to fall into deep shock. the power of Hu Jiu's hammer would probably not be less than 500 katas, and as time went by, Hu Jiu's strength was getting stronger and stronger. This made Tang San worry whether Hu Jiu would collapse his house. Zhao Jiu, take it easy, don't demolish my house. Oh, alright, little San, why don't you pull the bellows? I'll do it alone for a fighting pig-iron. Hu Jiu grinned. This is what he wanted. He still remembered that, in order to learn how to hammer the cloak, he looked at Tang San standing here every day striking the iron, while he stood beside him aggrieved and pulled the bellows. Okay, I'll pull the bellows for you. Tang San has nothing to say about this. With Hu Jiu so powerful, he really can't help much, and, next, he has to build something, with Hu Jiu as a free labor force. Yes, he can also put in a little less effort. Hu Jiu and Tang San were very busy here, but Zhao Wu was suffering. Without Hu Jiu's company, she would not feel fun. Fortunately, Emma was there. After seeing this situation, my mother, Emma, took her with her when she was doing farm work and let her experience rural life. Of course, even with it, she won't let her work. It's equivalent to playing with her in this way. Hu Jiu can also build his own weapon at Tang San's house with peace of mind. Refining the pig iron. Hu Jiu and Tang San spent a whole week refining the pig iron the size of a bucket into a small ball. At this time, it can no longer be called pig iron, it should be called refined iron. The fine iron was forged into a jet black and shiny color, making it obvious that it was not ordinary iron. For the next building, it was Tang San's turn to show his skills. You must know that in addition to Tang Hao's teaching, Tang San also worked in the blacksmith shop in Notting City for almost a year. In terms of craftsmanship, the average old master can't compare to him. If it weren't for this, Hu Jiu wouldn't ask Tang San to help him build weapons. He didn't lack money, so he could just find a blacksmith shop to help him build it. It was said that Tang San's craftsmanship was really good, and when the iron was in Tang San's hands, it was a change every day. In Hu Jiu's eyes, he watched as daunting spikes slowly appeared on the ball. After watching it for a long time, he was stunned to understand how these spikes appeared. Half a month later, Hu Jiu looked at the sharp meteor hammer in his hand with a happy face. The sharp thorns on the hammerhead made him extremely satisfied. This weapon, let alone hitting people, is scary just by looking at it. I'm afraid no one will want to bear his hammer. This meteor hammer is barely called a meteor hammer. With the hammerhead, it weighs 130 tons. If it weren't for the hang-up hammering method, which subtly enhanced his physical fitness, he might not be able to dance. Holding it in his hand made Hu Jiu feel fulfilled for a while. Man, we'll be fighting side by side for a long time to come. Hu Jiu touched the meteor hammer and said lightly, remember to favor it and recommend. Thank you. Chapter 38. Zhao Wu recognizes her relatives. After getting the meteor hammer, Hu Jiu couldn't wait to try its power, so he found Tang San and Zhao Wu and wanted to learn from them. Unfortunately, as soon as the two saw the appearance of his meteor hammer, they both waved their hands and refused, insisting not to discuss with him. Looking at the spikes on the meteor hammer gave them a chill in their hearts. Although they believed that Hu Jiu would not hurt them, they were worried that even if they fought, they were not sure they would win. Neither Tang San nor Zhao Wu would be interested in a battle that couldn't be won. Zhao Jiu, I helped you build the weapons, now it's your turn to help me. I also want to build some weapons. Tang San said with a smile. With Hu Jiu, a free labor force, at least some simple and practical hidden weapons could be produced in the last half month. The lancet, the money dart, the through bone nail, the innuendo, the tight-backed crossbow, the Zhuge God crossbow, and other hidden weapons flashed in his mind one by one, squeezing Hu Jiu. He is a professional. Okay, no problem. Hu Jiu agreed very simply. The meteor hammer in his hand was still Tang San's masterpiece, so a little help was nothing. And he also wanted to see how many hidden weapons Tang San would create, and it didn't matter whether he could use them or not. He mainly wanted to see the famous Tangman hidden weapons in the following period. Hu Jiu entered the coolie mode. He did not expect Tang San to be such a person. Let him temper all kinds of iron or every day and not let him rest for a moment. Hu Jiu even doubted whether the hidden weapon made of so many ores would fill Tang San's 24 bright moon bridge. This Tang San is not human. After arresting him as a coolie for so many days, even Xiao Wu didn't have time to accompany him. Speaking of Xiao Wu, Hu Jiu showed a strange smile. Because his mother Emma is so powerful, I don't know why. During the time when he and Tang San stayed in the blacksmith shop and worked hard, Emma accompanied Xiao Wu every day, and she recognized Xiao Wu as the dry daughter. I remember that Hu Jiu was quite shocked when he first heard the news. Xiao Wu suddenly advanced from being a breeder to a god sister, which caught him by surprise. On the spot, he asked a question that made Emma laugh for a long time. Mom, that Xiao Wu has become a god sister, can we still get married in the future? When he blurted out, Hu Jiu felt that he was not thin-skinned, but he was still shy and blushed. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Emma's mockery almost made Hu Jiu get under the table. But then Hu Jiu got an explanation. I knew you were a bad boy. Don't worry, I'm here to help you. You think, although you are studying in the same college now, who can say what will happen in the future? What if you go your separate ways in a few years? You will cry then. So, your old man recognized Xiao Wu as his daughter in advance. With this relationship, no matter where she goes in the future, we will be in touch, right? Hu Jiu looked at Emma dumbfounded. Alas, this is the heart of a mother and son, and they all thought of it together. Although Hu Jiu didn't think about it like Emma did, he was also prepared to keep pestering Xiao Wu. With him, Xiao Wu couldn't run away, even if she wanted to. After all, breeders are not called for nothing. No, in the future, you can wait with peace of mind. Xiao Wu, sooner or later, it will be yours. Emma was proud of her methods. Okay, mom is really amazing. Hu Jiu gave a thumbs up, feeling that his scheming should have been inherited from Emma. Otherwise, with his pure and kind nature, how could his thoughts be so dirty? Emma's family recognized a very cute little girl as their goddaughter, which was a big happy event in the village. Its liveliness was not worse than when Hu Jiu first awakened his martial spirit. In the Holy Soul village of more than 300 households, except for those who are not going out, there are more than 100 tables for banquets. Seeing Xiao Wu shyly calling out to his brother, Hu Jiu felt sweet. What's your brother? Wait for your love brother in the future. Hu Jiu thought lightly. Xiao Wu. Hu Jiu shouted. What's the matter, Xiao Jiu? Xiao Wu's name was still the same, except that he called his brother on the day he recognized his relatives. He never heard it again. Let me take a look at your hair. I remember Xiao Wu when she grew up. The moment her hair spread out, Hu Jiu's heart was about to melt, and she had never seen Xiao Wu with her hair spread out. Since she is now her godfather, it's not too much to look at Xiao Wu's loose hair. What do you want to do? Xiao Wu tilted her head and looked at Hu Jiu, her face full of doubts. Could it be that her scorpion braid is not good looking? Aha, I just want to see it. Hu Jiu can't say why. Could it be said that in his previous life, he was fascinated by Xiao Wu with loose hair? Well, let me think about this. Xiao Wu pointed her lips and said playfully, oh, you're hungry, here's a carrot. Seeing Xiao Wu's movements, Hu Jiu seconds understood. He found that Xiao Wu had a little habit, that is, she would point her lips when she wanted to eat carrots, which was very cute. That's about the same. If you want to see it, just look at it and solve it yourself. It's so troublesome to make this braid every time. Xiao Wu nibbled at the carrot and tilted her head to reveal the scorpion braid behind her, signaling Hu Jiu to do it herself. Hu Jiu was not polite and went forward to fiddle for a long time, and finally, sweating profusely, she dressed Xiao Wu with her hair loose, pretty looking. At Xiao Wu with a gentle and intellectual temperament, Hu Jiu suddenly felt that the busy work for a long time was worth it. Does it look good? Xiao Wu asked softly. Nice. Holidays always pass quickly, and a month has passed by suddenly. Before parting, Xiao Wu and Emma were reluctant to part. Facing Xiao Wu, this lovely little girl, Emma really regarded her as her daughter. Xiao Jiu Protect Xiao Wu when you arrive at the academy. If you treat her badly, see how I will deal with you when I come back. Emma stood in front of Hu Jiu with a serious tone. Don't worry, Mom. I will take good care of Xiao Wu. Remember, he seems to be an auxiliary spirit master, and Xiao Wu is a combat type. How can he protect him? Hu Jiu didn't dare to say or ask. After saying goodbye to Emma, Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu found Tang San, and the three of them went to Nuading Junior Spirit Master Academy together this year. They were already in the 2nd grade. Tang San's spirit power was 22, Hu Jiu was 22, and Xiao Wu was 22. That's right. During this month's holiday, Tang San and Hu Jiu have each advanced 1 level. After Tang San obtained the 2nd spirit ring, he was already on the verge of reaching the 22nd level, while Hu Jiu was the one who truly improved by 1 level. The on-hook panel allows him to continuously improve his soul power 24 hours a day, and the 1st soul ring absorb helps to increase the speed of hanging up. Coupled with the tall 7th level soul power meditation method, it is impossible to improve slowly. Chapter 39 Millennium Soul Ring. This year is Hu Jiu's 2nd year studying at Nuading Junior Spirit Master Academy. That is the 2nd grade. There is nothing new in the college life in the 2nd grade. Because of the on-hook panel, Hu Jiu has a lot of free time. In addition to the normal class, the rest of the time he takes Xiao Wu to play around, and he goes casually. Only Tang San still worked hard. His daily practice schedule was full. In addition to taking time to learn theoretical knowledge from the master, he was extremely busy. It is worth mentioning that this year, he and Xiao Wu did not enroll in the name of working students. They also studied at their own expense. Each was assigned a single dormitory, the same as Tang San. In this regard, Hu Jiu is also happy to see it happen. After all, Xiao Wu is a girl, and still lives in a mixed dormitory, not to mention Xiao Wu herself. Even he is not willing. A few years ago, his major clients Xiao Chenyu, Liu Long, and Ling Feng graduated, which almost made him lose a source of clients for a time. Fortunately, Hu Jiu was more clever, and asked them to send someone to trade with him in the future. After all, he traded for a month's consumption. After all, he had traded for so long, and such a high quality customer was reluctant to throw it away. The carrots he made are not much different from ordinary carrots. It is not a problem to store them for a month, but the taste will be a little worse after a long time. His suggestion was quickly approved by Xiao Chenyu and the others before graduating. Xiao Chenyu was invited to the Wuhandian Intermediate Academy for free as an 18th level soul master. Liu Long and Ling Feng were not bad either. Both of them were at the 17th level, and they also entered the Wuhandian together. Intermediate college. And for a while, because of the strong cultivation atmosphere and fierce competition in the Wuhandian Intermediate Academy, the three of them demanded Hu Jiu's carrots even more. Every month, it will bring him more than 1,000 gold soul coins, making Hu Jiu a person with good money. That is to say, the three of them have a good family background, and seeing that they have entered the Wuhandian Intermediate Academy, they feel that it is very valuable to cultivate. One day in 3 months, Hu Jiu excitedly looked at the purple spirit ring under his feet. It's not easy. The 1st spirit ring has been hung up for more than a year, and only now has it been promoted to a 1,000-year spirit ring. Hu Jiu's heart is anxious to wait. This is a 1,000-year-old spirit ring. Even the protagonist Tang San is only a 100-year-old spirit ring. Confidence inflate. Hu Jiu felt that he was about to go against the sky. After feeling the effect of the 1,000-year-old spirit ring, he felt that this day, don't go against it, just turn it over for him. He's going to turn upside down. Just look at the effect of his 1st spirit ring to know why Hu Jiu is so inflated. After becoming a 1,000-year-old spirit ring, the effect of the 1st spirit ring skill doubles the training speed, and it lasts for 1 hour after being eaten. To him is a passive skill, and the blessing time is permanent. Haha, this effect is to heaven defying. No, I have to calm down. I have to keep a low profile. After being excited for a long time, Hu Jiu came back to his senses. His current spirit ring effect is too amazing. He must hide it well. Currently, in Hu Jiu's heart, there are only two people he absolutely trusts, Xiao Wu and Tang San. Moreover, even if you give Tang San carrots in the future, you have to start collecting money. Who made him so stingy? He didn't even teach him Tang sect kung fu. Didn't he know that his hang-up seat was empty for a long time? As for Xiao Wu, forget it. Xiao Wu has no money, and he is still raising her up to now. And Xiao Chenyu and the others. Let me try to see if I can reduce the cultivation effect of carrots. If it can't be reduced, then this business will not be done in the future. In the face of his own safety, making money is just a trivial matter. Anyway, now he is no longer short of money. Arrogant. The advancement of the spirit ring, which feeds back on the hang-up panel, made Hu Jiu's spirit ring hang-up position improve dramatically. After hanging up for one day, the level of the 5-year spirit ring was actually raised, making Hu Jiu laugh so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. At this rate of improvement, even a 10,000-year spirit ring would not take a few years. At that time, the effect of the 10,000-year spirit ring would start to feed back again, increasing the number of years he had to hang up every day. This is a super rhythm. In addition, his carrot shape has also changed. Carrots that used to be only light red have now turned dark red and look more appetizing. The taste has also changed, and it has become more delicious. This result directly caused Xiao Wu to stop eating and eat carrots every day, but she never stopped. This is an addiction to eating carrots. Now Hu Jiu is relieved. Very good. Officially announced that a dancing rabbit has been captured. Little San, make money. The 1,000-year-old spirit ring made Hu Jiu swell. Selling a carrot to Tang San for 1 silver soul coin was already a bargain. After all, even if he only increased the cultivation effect by 10%, he would sell 1 gold soul coin, while Tang San had doubled his cultivation speed. For only 1 silver soul coin, Tang San felt that it was low. Xiao Jiu, let me make an IOU. I really don't have any money now. Tang San was a little ashamed. Apart from receiving 10 gold spirit coins from the spirit hall every month, he only had a meager income from the blacksmith shop. At the blacksmith shop, it started with 1 silver soul coin a month, and now the craftsmanship has improved, and it has risen to 2 silver soul coins. So, even if Tang San didn't eat or drink, he could only buy 100 or so for a month's salary. He needs at least 8 sticks a day. And he only needs to practice for 10 days for a month's salary, and then he will have no money. And Tang San couldn't bear the carrot of doubling his cultivation effect, so Hu Jiu officially became Tang San's creditor. Haha, what are you talking about, little San? Hu Jiu laughed proudly. Take it. Even if you eat it, it's not enough. I still have it here. It's too emotional to say anything about money or money. When you become prosperous in the future, just remember to owe me money. So, it doesn't matter if it's money or not. The main thing is to want to be Tang San's creditor. When Tang San gets the immortal grass in the future, will he be embarrassed not to keep one for himself? I vaguely remembered that in the original book, Tang San got a limited amount of immortal grass, just enough for the Shrek 7 devils, and now that there is one more of him, it is bound to squeeze out a place, so he has to occupy a position first. Oh, and Xiao Wu, there should be 2 positions. Okay, then I'll keep it for you. Tang San nodded earnestly. He knew that the reason why Hu Jiu wanted to charge him was mainly because he was afraid that he would feel sorry for him, that he would hurt his self-esteem, and that he would not eat it. That's why I use the way of buying and selling to make myself not owe him favors. Unfortunately, all this was seen through by the clever man. Xiao Jiu, wait, I will repay you later. In his heart, Tang San swore silently. With the doubling of the cultivation effect, Hu Jiu, Tang San, and Xiao Wu's cultivation speed suddenly accelerated, almost like riding a speeding car, changing every day. This kind of speed of raising their soul power simply terrifies them. Chapter 40 The Master Invite. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. At this time, due to the reason that the on-hook panel increased the life of his spirit ring by 5 years every day, the second spirit ring skill changed and immediately became a 1,000-year spirit ring. All spirit rings, as long as they reach the millennium age, their skill effects will be greatly improved. Change this skill as well. In front of Xiao Wu, Hu Jiu's appearance slowly changed. The skin became delicate, the head became smaller, the cheeks were flushed, and two pink rabbit ears appeared on the top of the head. Then, the clothes, the figure, and the tail all changed. In just a few seconds, two Xiao Wu appeared in the room. One was in the state of spirit transformation, and the other was not transformed. Oh. Xiao Jiu, you can even change my martial spirit. Xiao Wu, who had not transformed herself, stepped forward and grabbed Hu Jiu's two rabbit ears, and kept playing with it. Ah, Xiao Wu, don't play with my ears. Itching. A crisp and attractive voice sounded. Hu Jiu's eyes were blurred. He didn't expect that Xiao Wu's bunny ears would be so sensitive, and he didn't expect his transformation skills to change even this point. Oh, I forgot. Xiao Wu hurriedly let go. How could she not know how sensitive her rabbit ears were? For a while, Xiao Wu's face flushed red, and she couldn't raise her head in shame. After a long time, Xiao Wu raised her head and said nonchalantly, "Then Xiao Jiu, can you use my spirit ring skills?" The reason why she asked this was that when she bowed her head just now, she found that there were two yellow spirit rings under Hu Jiu's feet. Hu Jiu heard the words. His heart moved, and he closed his eyes, and sensed it carefully. It took a long time to raise his head, frowned, shook his head and said, "It doesn't seem to work. It's just a change of shape, and it has no practical effect." Hu Jiu was a little disappointed. If he could change other people's soul skills together, he would really develop. You must know that among his ordinary hang-up slots, there is another hang-up slot vacant, and the 7th hang-up slot is about to open. If he can simulate the spirit ability, he can directly sneak into those big forces and prostitute the self-created spirit ability of others. Which is beautiful when you think about it. At this moment, Hu Jiu's bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. You guys. Tang San looked at the two Xiao Wu in front of him with a shocked expression, at a loss. Can I say that I'm just experimenting with new skills? Hu Jiu hurriedly explained, but it always felt weird to say this in Xiao Wu's voice. Yo, Xiao Jiu. Tang San looked at the Xiao Wu in the state of spirit possessed, with doubts on his face. Remember, Hu Jiu's transforming skills can't transform martial spirits. Yes, I'm really testing my skills. After speaking, Hu Jiu's appearance began to change again, from Xiao Wu to Tang San in the blink of an eye. Not only the appearance is the same as Tang San, but also the dress is exactly the same. Blue. Silver grass, come out. He stretched out his right hand, and a blue silver grass appeared in Hu Jiu's hand. How? Hu Jiu looked at Tang San proudly. This is my blue silver grass. Curious, Tang San released his martial spirit and came to Hu Jiu to compare. It's amazing. I can't tell the difference at all. It's hard to tell the difference between the real and the fake. Is this your second spirit ring advanced effect? Tang San was already numb to Hu Jiu's cultivation speed in the spirit ring. He felt that the spirit ring couldn't change this theory, and it wouldn't be a fart in front of Hu Jiu. The speed of improvement was simply faster than the improvement of spirit power cultivation. What about the skills? Can my entanglement and parasitic be used? Tang San asked the same question as Xiao Wu. Shaking his head, Hu Jiu calmly explained, I can't change the spirit ring skills for the time being, but don't worry, the current life of the spirit ring is only 1,000 years, and it will be hard to say when it is 10,000 years. The 10,000-year spirit ring is it will take a few years to achieve it. Even if the skills cannot be changed at that time, there will be other effects. There is no doubt about this, so Hu Jiu was not in a hurry at all. That's right. Anyway, your spirit ring is improving very quickly. Tang San nodded in agreement. A genius like Hu Jiu should never be viewed by ordinary people. Oh, by the way, I'm here to tell you, my teacher is very interested in your first spirit ring skill. He wants to meet you. At this moment, Tang San thought of the purpose of coming to find Hu Jiu. Master wants to see me? See you then. Hu Jiu knew that this day would come, but he didn't expect it to be so late. Master's response was really slow. He had no reason to refuse to see Grandmaster. After all, the reason why he could get the first spirit ring so smoothly back then had to rely on Grandmaster's guidance. Therefore, even if it is a favor, this trip must go. When Hu Jiu asked. Let's do it now, so that the teacher doesn't have to worry about waiting. Tang San respects Grandmaster very much, and he will complete whatever Grandmaster instructs him. Okay, then go. Hu Jiu still knew something about the master. Old-fashioned, stubborn, and inflexible. This is the master's impression in Hu Jiu's mind. This person doesn't know how to be flexible at all. He has a straight face every day, as if the whole world owes him money. Hu Jiu has no interest in contacting such people. Moreover, Hu Jiu looked down on his relationship with Liu Erlang. As long as the lower limit is lower, or if it is simply decisive, things will not become what they are now, and they have been hiding for decades. It is not something that people do. When I came to the master's residence again, everything was the same as a year ago. There were books everywhere in the room, and the whole room was filled with the scent of books. Master, long time no see. Hu Jiu spoke first. I really didn't expect that you have grown to this point now. I have to say that it is really amazing to be able to cultivate to your level with the second level innate soul power. Seeing Hu Jiu again, the master looked at him and sighed. For Hu Jiu, his image was not deep. If it wasn't for Tang San's relationship, he might have forgotten about Hu Jiu. But in the past few months, he found that Tang San's spirit power cultivation speed was a bit abnormal. The first 3 months were fine, but it was raised from the 22nd level to the 23rd level. After all, he was born full of spirit power. He can accept it. But things started to be abnormal in the next 3 months, and he actually raised to levels again in a short period of time, to become a 25th level Great Spirit Master, which made Grandmaster very scared, afraid that Tang San would cultivate a forbidden book that is crooked. After all, no matter how talented Tang San was, the speed of cultivation couldn't be so fast. You must know that soul power cultivation was getting more and more difficult, and the more difficult it was to cultivate at the back point under his stern pressure. Tang San finally revealed Hu Jiu's name. I remember at the beginning, it was this little guy who, despite his dissuasion, insisted on choosing a rubbish as his spirit ring. At that time he came to the conclusion that Hu Jiu's way forward was cut off. One step at a time. One step at a time, with only a second level innate soul power, trying to catch up with the age of the spirit ring. To choose a 10-year spirit ring is simply self-destructing. He did not expect that this little guy would have achieved such a great achievement in just 1 year of absence. According to Tang San, Hu Jiu's soul power is now level 28, and he is only 1 level away from catching up with him. This is not enough. The most important thing is that he actually changed the iron rule, that the spirit ring cannot be improved. When he got this news from Tang San, he was stunned. If Tang San said he had verified it, he would never have believed it. It turns out that the age of the spirit ring can really be artificially increased. Exclamation mark. Chapter 41 The Master 039 Deal. When he first learned that the age of the spirit ring could be artificially increased, the master was very excited. However, Tang San's explanation made him so excited before, and then how disappointed he was. Tang San's explanation was Hu Jiu's original words. A person's time is limited. If you have time to cultivate spirit rings, why not use it to improve your cultivation? If your cultivation has improved, wouldn't it be good to hunt for higher level spirit rings earlier? This sentence made the master suddenly realize that it is true that increasing the age of the spirit ring is useless for ordinary spirit masters. Ordinary spirit masters have limited talent. Even if they know that the age of the spirit ring can be increased, it is useless, because human time is not enough use. So this discovery is only applicable to those geniuses, such as those of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, because they have the method of distraction control. It's a pity that his master is also a person of principles. Hu Jiu discovered that the spirit ring can be promoted. He wouldn't leak it without his permission. This was when Tang San told him the news. Already sworn. Of course, these are just the size of the master, not the main purpose of his looking for Hu Jiu today. Hu Jiu, I'll just say it straight. I invited you here today for nothing else. I heard from Tang San that your carrots can double the effect of your cultivation. I want to buy carrots from you. This is the main purpose of his looking for Hu Jiu point. His innate soul power is only half level, and for most of his life, he has tried his best to fail to break through to level 30. This has become his obsession point. Because of this, he turned a blind eye to those with low levels of innate soul power, such as Hu Jiu, and after knowing the effect of Hu Jiu's first spirit ring from Tang San, another idea was born. He can use Hu Jiu's carrot effect to break through his level. Master, there is no problem with buying my carrots. You may not know that my carrots are actually on sale all the time, but that kind of carrot can only increase the cultivation effect by 10%, and that kind of carrot I sell for 1 gold soul coin. At the beginning, Hu Jiu was surprised by the words of the master, but after a little thought, he understood the purpose of the master. If you want to break through the bottleneck, you can have this. However, if he didn't take this opportunity to extort money, he would not be Hu Jiu point anyway. The opportunity to buy carrots for the master is already a return of the original favor. Next, business is business, not favored. Then, what do you mean? The master looked at Hu Jiu indifferently. Now that he had decided to buy it, he was prepared to spend a lot of money. After all, Hu Jiu's soul skill effect was already equivalent to those treasures. Moreover, it is a genius treasure in batches. As long as the price is not too outrageous, he can accept it. You are the teacher of Xiaozhen. I can ask for too high a price, just 10 gold soul coins. Hu Jiu smiled. 10? After pondering for a moment, the master nodded slowly and said, the price is very reasonable. No problem. Give me 10 first. 10 gold soul coins is exactly the limit of his psychological price. It's not that Hu Jiu's carrots can't be sold at a high price, but that he doesn't have so much money. If those powerful people knew about Hu Jiu's carrot effect, let alone 10 gold soul coins, there would be people rushing to buy 100 gold soul coins. Of course, it is more likely to imprison him and become a cultivation tool that can be squeezed indefinitely. Master, 10 may not be enough. A carrot can only last for an hour, and 10 carrots can't last for a day. It's not very useful. Looking at the purse in front of him, Hu Jiu didn't stretch out his hand. Going to get it. He feels that there may be a different harvest today. The master looked up at the smiling young man in front of him, frowned and asked, what do you want? I can supply the carrots that the master needs to cultivate for a year. Hu Jiu raised his finger. The conditions are also very simple. I want a self-created soul skill that is useful to me. That's right, that's what Hu Jiu wanted. He didn't forget that Grandmaster was born in the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex. As one of the top 3 sects, he didn't believe in the soul skill that he didn't take. So, you want to learn soul skills? Do you know that in this world, self-created soul skills are very precious? Do you think you can get them so easily with just your carrots? The master looked at Hu Jiu lightly. A faint disgust flashed in his heart, and he felt that Hu Jiu was a little too far ahead. How precious are the self-created soul skills? Some precious soul skills, as long as you get one, you can completely support a large family. But Hu Jiu wants to change it with a little carrot, and his appetite is not small. It's very precious. I've already created 2, and I don't think it's too difficult. If you don't believe me, ask the mistress. Hu Jiu threw her hands innocently. People in the world are more precious than they think. The master was almost speechless by Hu Jiu's words. Just say whether to sell it or not. If you want a soul skill, it is absolutely impossible. Sell. Why not sell? There is no reason not to do a door-to-door business. Hu Jiu stretched out his hands and made 10 carrots after a while. After laying it on the table in a row, he took the purse on the table and stuffed it into his pocket without counting. Since there is nothing else, I will leave. Master, I hope we will have a chance to cooperate again. Hu Jiu smiled slightly, stood up and said, wait a minute. Just as Hu Jiu was about to leave, the master raised his hand to stop him. What? Is there anything else, master? Hu Jiu asked curiously. This Grandmaster hesitated for a while, and after being silent for a while, he couldn't help but say, can you tell me why your spirit ring can improve so quickly? It is human nature to be curious. Hu Jiu can raise a 10-year spirit ring to 1,000 years in just over a year. There is no secret here, and I'm afraid no one will believe it. What's more, as an expert with rich theoretical knowledge like Grandmaster, Hu Jiu's method of increasing the age of his spirit ring made Grandmaster's heart feel like a cat scratching, and his heart itch. No. Comment. Hu Jiu's face turned cold. He had seen shameless people, but he had never seen such shameless people before. You didn't want to exchange soul skills with you, but now it's better. I found out about the secrets of labor and management. Is it courting death? The on-hook panel is an absolute taboo for him, and he will kill anyone who wants to touch it. What about the master? It's not wrong to kill it. At this moment, Hu Jiu became vigilant in his heart, and he must guard against others. No matter what the master is, he should guard against others. It seems that it will be a little harder in the future. After leaving the master's residence, Hu Jiu's senses improved, and he felt the master's residence from a distance. At this moment, all the master's movements were under his surveillance, and all the master's movements were in his senses. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Killing the Rabbit to Prove the Dao. Not long after leaving the master's residence, Tang San left immediately and followed Jiu. I'm sorry, I didn't expect Grandmaster to ask you such a question. Coming to Hu Jiu's side, Tang San apologized sincerely. Tang San never got into the question of why Hu Jiu's spirit ring improved so quickly, but simply attributed it to Hu Jiu's special physique. It's not that Tang San is not smart. On the contrary, it was because he was too smart that he never asked. Everyone has their own secrets. Hu Jiu has it. Tang San has it too, but he knows that a person has a bottom line, no matter how close the relationship is. This bottom line cannot be touched. To be honest, when he heard the teacher ask this question from his mouth, Tang San felt that the teacher had overstepped. Here, Hu Jiu listened carefully to Tang San's apology and said lightly, "Little San, people are unpredictable. This time is a lesson. I don't blame you, but the cause of this matter is because of you, because your mouth is not strict, because you think that the master is your teacher, and you dare not lie in the face of his inquiry. So the master is impetuous and asks me. It's not the question he should ask, so the responsibility lies with you." Hu Jiu rarely cast aside the carefree youthful demeanor, with the depths of an adult in his eyes, like a pool of spring water, bottomless. The mature nature of his previous life allowed him to see through everything, because in this life he didn't want to live too tired, just wanted to enjoy life happily, so he was young at heart and often acted like a child. Speaking of which, Hu Jiu is more mature than Tang San in terms of xingxing. Tang San had always stayed in the Tang sect in his previous life, never going out, and that world was still ancient, and it couldn't compare to the Huahua world that Hu Jiu had experienced. Differences in vision, information, temperament, etc. made Hu Jiu stand on the shoulders of giants, looking down at Tang San. Hu Jiu's language, coupled with the detachment he showed, made Tang San sweat. At this moment, Tang San felt that the pressure Hu Jiu brought him was even greater than when facing his father. This little nine is so scary. Tang San is in awe. Yes, the responsibility really lies with me. Tang San lowered his head, just like when a junior faces an elder, letting it be taught. Haha, but don't put it on your body. It's not scary to make a mistake. What's scary is that you don't even know it when you make a mistake. In this regard, you are good, little San. He patted Tang San on the shoulder. Hu Jiu laughed. In Hu Jiu's laughter, Tang San only felt the pressure light up, as if everything just now was an illusion. Tang San also smiled. Jiu, don't worry, things like this won't happen again in the future. It didn't affect their relationship because of today's event. So Tang San let out a long sigh. Just now he was worried about losing his brother Hu Jiu because of today's incident. After this day, on the surface, Hu Jiu seemed to have forgotten to see the master, and he still played carefree with Xiao every day. But in fact, he has a mind, and his five senses are always aware of the condition of the master. If he has any signs of change, he will kill him desperately. What's more, the master doesn't seem to have the ability to be a bad person, and he can't even be ruthless. There was no difference for a long time, and Hu Jiu seemed to have waited in vain. And just like that, 4 months passed. 4 months later, Hu Jiu's spirit power level finally reached the 30th level. From cultivation to now, it took less than 2 years to cultivate to level 30. This speed is astounding but also understandable Although his cultivation talent is not high, he can't stand the bonus and hang up. The 8th level soul power meditation method provided him with a 70% cultivation speed acceleration. The first spirit ring skill provides him with a double training speed bonus. Finally, there is an on-hook panel for 24-hour non-stop on-hook practice, and it is difficult to slow down the improvement of soul power. At level 30, it's time to consider the third spirit ring skill. Hu Jiu had already thought about his third spirit ring. It is about Xiao Wu's teleportation skill. Remember, it was said in the original book that the teleportation skill was in Lightning Rabbit. At present, his main attack methods are the random cloak hammer method and the soul power spiral pill. Among them, the cloak hammer method cannot be interrupted during the charging phase, which is a fatal shortcoming in battle. There is also the soul power spiral pill. The attack method of this skill is very monotonous. It can only attack in a straight line, and it is easy to be evaded by the enemy in advance. If you have teleport skills, it will be different. The random cloak and teleportation will prevent the enemy from grabbing the corners of his clothes, allowing him to rest assured to store his energy. Soul power spiral pill plus teleportation, so that he can move to the enemy's side at any time and take the ghost attack route. So kill the rabbit to go difficult. After thinking about it, Hu Jiu came to Xiao Wu's dormitory. Xiao Wu was entangled here for a long time, making Xiao Wu impatient. Hey, Xiao Jiu, why didn't I find out when you still had a mother-in-law? What do you have to say? Xiao Wu nibbled at the carrot and squinted at Hu Jiu. Hu Jiu raised her head nervously, raised her head cautiously and said, Xiao Wu, I'm level 30, really? This is a good thing. Why are you still showing that face? Xiao Wu exclaimed in surprise. Although she knew that Hu Jiu was almost upgraded, she was really happy to hear the news. Isn't it possible to choose the third spirit ring? I have some ideas for the next spirit ring. Hu Jiu observed Xiao Wu's face and said slowly, I think of a method that can make up for the shortcomings of the shattered cloak hammer technique. Soul ring skill, but this skill needs to be obtained from Lightning Rabbit. Do you want teleportation skills? It had to be said that Xiao Wu knew about rabbits. Just by hearing Hu Jiu say a name, she could guess the skill Hu Jiu wanted. Well, teleportation is really suitable for your combat system, but lightning rabbits are very rare and hard to catch. Xiao Wu's voice didn't sound like anything out of the ordinary, even if Hu Jiu was watching with all his strength. Such a reaction made Hu Jiu wonder whether it was good or bad. Since you can't see it, then ask. Hu Jiu looked at Xiao Wu and asked, aren't you angry? I'm going to kill Lightning Rabbit. Kill? What's the problem? Xiao Wu looked at Hu Jiu in confusion. Aren't we discussing this? I'm telling you that Lightning Rabbit is not easy to catch. Isn't your martial spirit a rabbit? Aren't you angry? Hu Jiu raised his head in surprise. In the original book, isn't Xiao Wu very kind-hearted? And she herself is a rabbit. Why doesn't she object to him killing Lightning Rabbit? Hu Jiu was puzzled. You stupid. Xiao Wu looked at Hu Jiu with strange eyes. My martial spirit is a rabbit. What does it have to do with you killing Lightning Rabbit? Lightning Rabbit is not my relative. It's none of my business. Sure. Enough. The original is the original. Now is now. Xiao Wu is just Xiao Wu, and one cannot arbitrarily judge a person's personality with one-sided information. Chapter 43 Stardow Great Forest. Okay, since you don't mind, let's talk about how to act. After no longer tangled, Hu Jiu readily discussed with Xiao Wu about hunting lightning rabbits in a few days. The academy would be on vacation again, and Hu Jiu decided to take advantage of this time to get his third spirit ring point. Since the unpleasant exchange with the master, Hu Jiu began to consciously conceal his soul power cultivation base. So far, the academy only knows that he is a great soul master. As for the specific level, there is no information. And this time, he didn't intend to let the academy know about the spirit ring hunt, or he didn't want to let the master know. Point anyway, the academy couldn't provide much help in hunting for spirit rings. Go to the Great Stardow Forest. Xiao Wu suddenly said. Seeing Hu Jiu's doubtful eyes, she retracted her gaze and lowered her head to prevent Hu Jiu from seeing her expression. I haven't told you yet, in fact, I'm an orphan. I grew up in the Stardow Great Forest since I was a child. I was adopted by a gorilla and a bull python. For me, the Great Stardow Forest is my home. I'm familiar with everything there, including the lightning rabbit you are looking for. I also know where it is. Xiao Wu's remarks made Hu Jiu's eyes become pitiful. He looked at Xiao Wu affectionately. Xiao Wu, no, sister, you are not an orphan. My mother is your mother, my father is your father, and me, I'm your brother. It turns out that Xiao Wu is an orphan. Hu Jiu took a deep breath and silently kept this point in his heart. Brother. Xiao Wu raised her head delicately and responded in a low voice. The atmosphere is getting stronger. A few days later, the annual holiday came. Hu Jiu, Xiao Wu, Tang San, the three left the academy together and returned to the Holy Spirit village. The arrival of Xiao Wu made Emma very happy, and secretly, she gave Hu Jiu a thumbs up. But after a few days, Emma was not happy. What did you say? You want to leave Xiao Wu for a while? Emma refused without thinking. No, you are still young. You are not allowed to go anywhere. Just stay at home for me. This year, Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu were more than 8 years old. Because of their relationship as soul masters, their bodies developed very quickly, and they had grown into teenagers. But in Emma's view, this is not enough. No matter what they look like, they are only 8 years old. They should go to school and cultivate obediently at this age. Helpless, seeing her resolute appearance, Hu Jiu had no choice but to tell the truth. Mom, it's not that we want to leave, but we have to leave. My cultivation has reached a bottleneck, and I must hunt for spirit rings to continue to improve. It is about cultivation. I have to go. After all, I finally managed to convince Emma and let her keep her spirit power level secret. The 8-year-old 30-level spirit power level is too conspicuous, and you need to keep a low profile at all times. After convincing Emma, the next thing is simple. Without saying goodbye to Tang San, Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu quietly left the Holy Soul Village early the next morning and headed to the Stardow Great Forest. For the spirit ring this time, Xiao Wu said that she would make full arrangements. Hu Jiu didn't have to do anything, just follow her, and this trip couldn't take Tang San. According to Xiao Wu's words, one more person means more danger. The Stardow Great Forest is nowhere else. Even if she lived there, since she was a child, she still needs to be careful. But Hu Jiu felt that Xiao Wu was lying. She just wanted to be alone with herself and live a two-person world. It's a pity that Hu Jiu didn't dare to say this on the way. Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu both changed their appearances with their changing skills, making them look unremarkable. In this way, nothing bad happened again. Hurry up and hurry up. 10 days later, they have arrived at the periphery of the Stardow Great Forest. Xiao Jiu, pay attention to the safety of the surroundings. We will enter the core area of the Stardow Great Forest first, and then I will ask Erming to pick us up. When she arrived at the Stardow Great Forest, Xiao Wu felt as if she had returned to her own home, and the whole person became happy. Oh, this seems to be her home. Well, don't worry, with my perception ability, no one can escape my perception except for a very few soul beasts who are good at hiding. The 8th level 5 sense enhancement technique allows Hu Jiu to discover the breath of spirit beasts in advance, especially in such a complex environment. It is like a duck to water. This was the first time Hu Jiu had come to the Stardow Great Forest. Compared to the soul hunting forest he had been to before, the distribution of spirit beasts was more dense, and it was not comparable to the soul hunting forest in terms of strength. In the Great Stardow Forest, 100-year-old spirit beasts can be seen everywhere, and 1000-year-old spirit beasts are no longer rare. It can be said that walking all over the ground for 1000 years is not as good as a dog for 100 years. This metaphor is not an exaggeration at all. Point as Hu Jiu and Xiao deepened, more powerful soul beasts began to appear. In just half a day, sporadic 10,000-year soul beasts had already appeared in Hu Jiu's perception range point. That aura made Hu Jiu's heart linger. With his current strength, as long as he encounters a 10,000-year soul beast, he will die, and he can't even escape. Xiao Wu, are we still going? It's very dangerous here. Hu Jiu looked at Xiao Wu with a guilty conscience. These spirit beasts are not standing still. Many spirit beasts are moving at will, especially it was those 10,000-year-old soul beasts. Every time they moved, Hu Jiu was frightened, for fear that they also possessed the ability to perceive, and could detect their existence in advance. Don't worry, Xiao Jiu. Come here with my little sister, just like your home. Don't be afraid. I will protect you. Seeing Hu Jiu's appearance, Xiao Wu felt very amused. It is rare to see Hu Jiu like this. Stop it. Hurry up and contact your good friend Erming. Hu Jiu gave Xiao Wu an angry look. Point the amazing effect of the five senses is really good, but Hu Jiu is also deeply affected by it. After all, he can sense those existences that can threaten his life safety every moment, just like sheep breaking into the territory of wolves, for fear it was eaten by accident. Alright, I won't tease you anymore. I have informed Erming. I believe he is already heading towards us. Don't worry, wait. With him here, we won't have to worry about safety soon. Wu patted Hu Jiu on the shoulder and comforted him. Okay, let's find a place to rest first. Hu Jiu felt tired after walking for a long time. Point, mainly because the psychological pressure is too great. He needs to rest. Well, I'm hungry. I want to eat carrots. Xiao Wu rubbed her stomach and said pitifully, eat less and be careful to gain weight. Hu Jiu smiled and made a carrot and threw it to Xiao Wu. Point, this rabbit, Xiao Wu, is just greedy. How could she be hungry? She is just eating and playing. Finding a remote place, Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu just rested and waited for Erming's arrival. Point, during the chat, Xiao Wu began to introduce Taming and Erming to Hu Jiu. Point, however, Hu Jiu knew that in Xiao Wu's introduction, only 9 points were true, and the remaining points were actually fake. The fake part was Xiao Wu's cover for concealing her identity. Chapter 44. Since I was a child, I was abandoned by my parents in the Great Stardao Forest, and made the forest my home. There are no friends, no relatives. The only ones who accompany me growing up are only Tuming and Erming. They don't know how to take care of people. I'm so pitiful. Xiao Wu stammered to introduce her life experience. Hu Jiu listened carefully. Not serious, so as not to laugh out loud. Point, this rabbit is cunning and knows how to deceive him. Point, but listening to it, he really hurts. A girl who has been living in the core area of the Stardao Great Forest since she was a child. What a pity. But there was one thing that puzzled Hu Jiu, so he asked, then how did you come to Notting College? This is about to start with another matter. Xiao Wu took a bite of the carrot and continued. When I was about 6 years old, a seriously injured person came to my house. I saved my life. And then when he's healed, asked me if I want to go out with him and see the outside world. Then you followed. Aren't you afraid of danger? Hu Jiu answered. Don't be afraid. Daming said that, because of the injury, that person's cultivation base is completely useless, even an ordinary person. Later, I went back to his hometown with him, a small village not far from Notting City. Then, how is this person now? I haven't seen him come to see you. Hu Jiu believed that with Xiao Wu's cute appearance and being a savior, I'm afraid that person would kiss her more than her own daughter. Hehehe. Xiao Wu let out a series of sarcastic laughter. After a while, she stopped laughing, expressionless. He died. I killed him. After speaking, Xiao Wu looked at Hu Jiu with an inexplicable expression. In the depths of her eyes, there was a touch of anxiety and a trace of tension. Point, however, Hu Jiu's reaction was beyond her expectations. He slapped his thigh. It's good to die. Xiao Wu, remember, some people are very bad, so don't trust others easily in the future. Regarding the person Xiao Wu said, Hu Jiu believed that he had actually appeared, which also explained why Wu entered Notting College as a working student. Don't you think I'm a bad girl? I'll kill him. Seeing Hu Jiu's reaction, Wu cried out in disbelief, but there was a hint of relief in the depths of her eyes. Wu. There are all kinds of people in this world. There are good people and bad people. Even someone as cute as you can't help but kill him. Then he should be damned. I believe in you. Hu Jiu responded to Wu's reaction. But he didn't take it seriously. He had seen too many things about the human heart in his previous life, and a heart had long been immune to 100 poisons. As for Wu's murder, how could he react? This is the Douluo continent, so what's the point of killing someone? Then, why don't you ask the reason? Wu insisted, as if Hu Jiu had to figure it out. Helplessly, Hu Jiu spread her hands and said, what's there to ask? Anyway, it's all unpleasant memories. The past is gone. Wu, let's look forward. Don't think about those bad things. No, I still have to make it clear to you. Because you are Jiu. If it's someone else, I don't care what he thinks. Wu looked at Hu Jiu angrily. Mouth Barbara. 3 or 2 times just put things will be understood. It turned out that when Wu left that person, because of the failure of her cultivation base, her temperament has changed greatly. After returning to the small village, she has been drinking heavily. She even ignored Wu, and the old woman in the neighbor gave her meals from time to time. Eat, or she will starve to death. Later, the drunkard ran out of money, and in order to drink, he even hit Wu with his idea. He wanted to sell Wu. However, Wu accidentally found out about this matter. In the end, needless to say, seeing that the drunkard refused to repent and insisted on selling her, Wu killed her in a rage. Look, I knew you must have been wronged. Don't worry, no one will dare to bully you with your brother here in the future. Hu Jiu patted his chest to assure, yeah. Wu nodded heavily. After such a long chat, the sky has darkened, especially in the forest. As the night approached, some nocturnal spirit beasts also began to appear, and the whole forest became lively. In Hu Jiu's ears, he felt that spirit beasts were everywhere, preying on and fighting, revealing the jungle side of the jungle. Just when Hu Jiu was about to ask why hadn't come yet, his ears moved slightly, and from 5 miles away, he sensed an extremely huge aura moving in their direction. The aura was full of savagery and irritability, and the wild aura just rushed towards him, causing Hu Jiu to tremble involuntarily for a moment. No need to guess, this breath must be apart from the 100,000-year-old soul beast, there is no other existence with such a powerful aura, and it also appears in the core edge of the Stardow forest. Obviously, this is for them. Wu. Seems to have appeared. Hu Jiu said happily to Wu. The Stardow Great Forest is too dangerous. If it wasn't for seeing Hu Jiu would never have come here. Really, that's great. Wu jumped up happily. With around, she could walk sideways in the Stardow Great Forest. Erming's speed was very fast. In just 5 minutes, he appeared in front of Hu Jiu and Wu. It's so big. Like a hill, suddenly appeared in front of him, causing Hu Jiu to be amazed involuntarily. This is still limbs on the ground. If he stands upright, I'm afraid it will be even taller. Whole body was pitch black, especially now that it was getting late. If it wasn't for Hu Jiu's amazing eyesight, he would have hardly noticed it. Ming, why are you here? We've been waiting for you for a long time. Wu jumped up from the ground and complained to Huh? Let out a breath and looked at Wu innocently with his lantern-sized eyes, expressing that he didn't know what you were talking about. Oh, forget it. Let me introduce you to him. He is the Jiu I told you about. You are not allowed to hurt him. Wu pointed at Hu Jiu and said seriously to she was afraid that would be naughty and accidentally hurt Hu Jiu. So she gave a special warning. The Titan giant ape turned his eyes, and the scarlet yellow eyes stared straight at Hu Jiu, which made Hu Jiu's stress increase instantly, and he was sweating profusely, and he almost fell to the ground. Unbearable. Fuck, this shit is definitely intentional. Hu Jiu scolded inwardly. If he couldn't beat him, Hu Jiu would definitely slap him in the mouth and let him know what it means To be polite apostrophe variety point. Hu Jiu's thoughts moved and all began to flash crimson light. In just an instant, Hu Jiu's muscles and clothes were stretched tight, and in a blink of an eye, he had changed from a handsome young man to a 9-foot tall man more than 2 meters tall. Chapter 45. The pressure has finally decreased. Hu Jiu looked at the Titan giant ape with a blank expression. Wait for me, you bastard. After that, I'll see how I deal with you. Ming, I'm going to be angry. At this time, Xiao Wu also saw that something was wrong and hurriedly came to Hu Jiu to block the coercion of the Titan giant ape for him. Seeing Xiao Wu, Worming immediately withdrew his aura and his eyes instantly became dull, as if he didn't know everything just now. Damn, Ming, wait for me. I must tell Damning later that you bullied me. Xiao Wu put her hands on her hips and looked at Ming angrily. In the end, she couldn't help but feel her hatred. She stepped forward to Ming. Beside him, he kicked a few kicks facing Xiao Wu's punches and kicks. The giant ape squatted down slightly so that Xiao Wu could hit him from a more comfortable angle. Forget Xiao Wu, Ming and I are playing around. After Xiao Wu fought for a while, Hu Jiu stepped forward to persuade her. Yeah, Ming. Hu Jiu inexplicably reached out and patted the giant ape who was afraid of squatting on the ground. The Titan giant ape nodded hurriedly, looked at Xiao Wu pitifully, and indicated that he was playing with Hu Jiu. What are you doing here? Take us home. Xiao Wu kicked Ming's palm and said angrily, "Roar." Ming shouted loudly when he heard the words, straightened up, waved his hands, instantly grabbed Xiao Wu and Hu Jiu in his hands, and placed them on his shoulders. At this moment, Hu Jiu had a new understanding of Ming's strength. Seeing Ming's palm grabbing it, he couldn't even dodge in time. This feeling of powerlessness made him extremely depressed. It seems that, if you want to teach Ming a lesson, there is a long way to go. However, this idea was thrown away by him after a while, because Ming had already started to act. His huge body quietly shuttled through the forest. Hu Jiu only felt that the surrounding environment was changing very fast. There was only the whistling of the wind beside his ears. It was like traveling through space, and he felt that the surrounding air was distorted and deformed. I don't know how long ago, it seemed like an instant, and it seemed like a long time later. Hu Jiu felt that Ming had finally stopped under his feet. Only at this time did Hu Jiu realize that he had come to a lake. The lake was extremely clear, and the trees on both sides formed extremely clear reflections under the moonlight. Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu jumped off Ming. Xiao Wu, is this where you used to live? It's so beautiful. Hu Jiu exclaimed. Well, that's where I grew up. Xiao Wu nodded. Then she looked at the lake and shouted loudly, "Damning, come out, I'm back." Boom. As soon as Xiao Wu's voice fell, the entire lake was boiling, and after a few breaths, a black cyan bull's head with a diameter of 4 meters emerged from the water. The azure bull python appeared. Sister Wu, it's really you. I almost thought I was wrong. Xian King Niu Mang spit out a voice, with a majesty in his voice, as if an emperor was talking. Of course it's me. This time I brought my friends back to play. Let me introduce to you. This is Xiao Jiu. I told you before. Xiao Wu came to Hu Jiu kindly, and said Hu Jiu introduced him to Damning. Damning, hello. I heard that there is an emperor in the Stardow Great Forest. Today, it seems that it is really powerful. Hu Jiu's words are really not a compliment. In his perception, Damning's breath is deep, especially his soul power, which seems to be boundless, and can't see the end. Xiao Jiu, I know you. I heard from Xiao Wu that you are her very good friend. Welcome to the Stardow Great Forest. Damning nodded and greeted Hu Jiu in a gentle tone. Well, I'm sorry, I came here in a hurry this time, and I didn't bring you any gifts. Why don't you try my carrots? Xiao Wu likes them very much. Hu Jiu was a little embarrassed. It was the first time to someone else's house. I don't even bring some gifts. I always feel a little rude, helpless. Hu Jiu had to make it now, and take out his martial soul carrot to entertain them. Oh, I heard that your carrots are very special. I just tried them today. Damning's attitude is very good, and he did not look down on Hu Jiu because of his low strength. From the beginning to now, he has always treated Hu Jiu with an equal attitude. 9. This greatly increased Hu Jiu's affection for him. Unlike the gorilla, he was not friendly at all. After making a handful of carrots, Hu Jiu gave them to Daming and Erming respectively. Of course, Xiao Wu's was not left behind. Hu Jiu was quite satisfied with his martial spirit. The doubling of his cultivation speed was not only useful for people of low realm, it was aimed at all realms. The higher the strength, the greater the benefits. Just like now, Daming just tasted it politely at first, but the moment after entering it, he felt the benefits of carrots. You must know that it is very difficult for him to improve his strength when his cultivation base has reached his realm, and Hu Jiu doubled his cultivation speed for him. He felt this obvious change in an instant. Xiao Jiu, your carrots are very good. I didn't expect it to work on me. It's amazing. After a while, Daming sighed. This kept the smile on Hu Jiu's face unbroken. This was a compliment from the Emperor of the Stardao Great Forest. If people saw this scene, it would be enough to make him proud for a long time. On the other hand, the Titan Giant Ape was originally disdainful. He was not Sister Wu, so he would be interested in a small carrot. But after hearing Daming's compliment, he ate the carrot in disbelief. Then Hu Jiu only felt that a big head suddenly appeared in front of him, and there was a clear desire in his eyes. Haha, Erming, you have today too. So what if you are amazing? You haven't been fed by me yet. The corners of Hu Jiu's mouth were slightly upturned, and he made some carrots again with a big smile. Ming, eat it sparingly. The effect of my carrots can last for an hour. If you eat too much, it won't work. You have to wait until the effect is over before you eat it. Watching Erming grab a handful of carrots and throw them into his mouth, Hu Jiu warned. Raw. Hu Jiu, what is he talking about? Hu Jiu looked at Xiao Wu, waiting for her translation. He said your carrot was too small. He didn't even taste it. Xiao Wu explained with a smile. Oh, there's nothing I can do about this. Who made him so big? Hu Jiu scratched his forehead and was speechless about it. By the way, Xiao Wu, didn't you say you want to find a spirit ring for me? When are we going? He has already met Daming and Erming, so it is time to do business. Today, Erming's affairs make him very depressed. Although Erming is not malicious, he is just joking with him, but it is true that he is weak. Hu Jiu also wanted to get a spirit ring as soon as possible to improve his strength. Chapter 46 Lightning Rabbit. Actually, there is a reason why I took you back to the Great Stardao Forest. After hearing Hu Jiu's question, Xiao Wu began to explain the reason for Hu Jiu. I told you that the lightning rabbit soul beasts you are looking for are not only very rare, but because they all teleport, few people outside can find them, let alone hunt them. Well, I also know this. I was already prepared for a protracted battle. Hu Jiu nodded and said, but my little sister Wu is not an ordinary person. Here, I happen to know a group of lightning rabbits, and I'm also very good friends with them. Among them, there is a lightning rabbit who has been cultivated for exactly 2000 years, and is about to die of old age. It's your chance. A lightning rabbit that is dying of old age. Hu Jiu heard the words, and his spirits were immediately lifted. God help me too. Originally, because he knew how difficult the lightning rabbit was to kill, he also prepared a second spirit ring scheme for himself. Xiao Jiu, let me tell you. I won't allow you to hunt lightning rabbits. They are all my friends. You don't want to use violence. Xiao Wu looked at Hu Jiu angrily. Why is there no love at all? I told him that this is my friend. Ah. Then do you want me to wait for it to die of old age? How long will it take? Hu Jiu was a little reluctant. The devil knows when it will die of old age. What if it just can't hold its breath? Idiot. Xiao Wu stomped her feet, looked at him angrily and said, who told you to wait for it to die of old age? I want you to find a way to make it sacrifice to you. Do you know about sacrifice? It can perfectly absorb the spirit ring. There is no side effect, and you can still get 100% of the sacrifice of the soul bone. Hey, that's a good idea. Hu Jiu's eyes lit up, but then he frowned. I have no relationship with Lightning Rabbit. Why did it sacrifice to me? It depends on your ability. I can only help you here. Xiao Wu said that the opportunity has been given. As for how to make lightning rabbit sacrifice, it is none of her business, but from Xiao Wu's smiling eyes, it can be seen that this method is not difficult. Point is it, Xiao Wu, don't you want me to feed them? Hu Jiu's eyes lit up, and he instantly thought of his own advantages. Yup. Rabbits love carrots by nature. At that time, you only need to have a good relationship with them first, and maybe it will work in the end. And he knows that sacrifice is not without benefits for the soul beast. Point at the very least, because of the active integration with the host, the soul of the soul beast will not be hostile to the host. In this way, the soul can be completely preserved, and there may be a chance to be resurrected in the future. Of course, the premise of resurrection is after he becomes a god. These are all for later. For the time being, he only needs to feed the group of lightning rabbits. What are you talking about? It's so ugly. Xiao Wu didn't respond. She always felt that Hu Jiu was talking about her. Well, that's pretty much what it means. Maybe you don't know it yet. In fact, soul beasts can cultivate, but their cultivation is based on instinct, which is very rough. Your carrot effect is also very useful to them, and with that delicious taste, they have no reason not to like you. It just takes some time for them to like you as a family member. Xiao Wu explained to Hu Jiu with her fingers in her hands. It was like a virtuous wife was thinking of him. Well, in order to get the spirit ring you want, it's okay to spend some time. Hu Jiu could understand this, and didn't care. That night, Hu Jiu slept with joy. The next morning, after Hu Jiu fed Ming, he said to him with a smile, Ming, I have a very powerful hammering technique. I have never met anyone who can take me a hammer before. Do you want to try it? Raw. Ming couldn't stand this. Hearing this, he stood up without saying a word, and the chest thumped with the palm of his hand. Without Xiao Wu's translation, Hu Jiu knew what he meant. Who do you look down on? There is no attack in the world that Ming can't take. Okay, then you can take a good look. Hu Jiu clenched the meteor hammer in his hand excitedly. The gentleman took revenge overnight. This gorilla played him once yesterday, and he will return it today. The change skill was activated, and Hu Jiu instantly turned into a 9-footed man. The muscles on his body were knotted, and even his clothes almost burst, just like a reckless man. Soul power controls the flow of the whole body, protecting itself, so as not to be burst by the violent power at present. Hu Jiu's random cloak hammer technique has reached the 9th level, and the last hammer of 9981 hammers, the accumulated strength has reached his own 8000 jins of strength. However, he didn't dare to hit this last blow at all. First of all, his body couldn't bear it. I'm afraid he would be blasted before the attack could be hit. The meteor hammer swings, and the hammer head rotates round and round around the body. Power is accumulating. The more laps Hu Jiu swung, the stronger his momentum became. With just over 30 hammers, the aura on his body has already surpassed Soul Venerable, and the momentum is still rising. When Hu Jiu swung the hammer for the 49th time, he finally reached the limit that his body could bear. If he accumulates it any longer, he won't be able to hold it any longer. Ming, look at the move. Hu Jiu shouted, his body like lightning driven by the meteor hammer. Ouch. Hu Jiu's attack had almost reached the peak of the soul sect. Although such an attack wouldn't hurt Ming, it could still hurt. No. Hu Jiu's insidious weapon has dense spikes on it. Those spikes pierced into Ming's skin, causing him to feel needle-like pain, and even his voice changed. Wow. Ming gasped heavily, staring at Hu Jiu with hatred. This hammer really hurt him. Ming, are you alright? Are you injured? Hu Jiu asked anxiously, but he was a little gloating about it. Finally got revenge. Bang. Bang bang. Ming slapped his chest, indicating that nothing happened. How could there be something wrong? But it only hurt a little. And as a male, he will not show weakness in front of his friends. Xiao Jiu, don't bully Ming. Be careful, he hits you. At this moment, Xiao Wu, who woke up, warned with a grin, hey, it's okay, I'm just playing with Ming. Hu Jiu replied with a light smile. I finally hit Ming. Although his attack is nothing in front of Ming, as long as the hit hurts, it's good enough. Beside her, the simple Ming still didn't know Hu Jiu's careful thoughts. He was poking at Xiao Wu, as if to say that they were really joking. Chapter 47 Pink. After a simple breakfast, Xiao Wu took Hu Jiu to see Lightning Rabbit. There are 3 lightning rabbits you will see later. They are a family. The mother's name is Pink, and her 2 children, Xiao Hu and Xiao Bei. Hey, Xiao Wu, can't you give them a nice name? Damning, Pink Xiao Hu, and Xiao Bei. Oh hey. Hu Jiu was gifted by Xiao Wu's talent for naming funny. What are these names? HMPH. I just think it sounds good. What's the problem? Xiao Wu looked at Hu Jiu angrily, wishing she could put melon seeds on his head. She thought about these names for a long time, but she didn't expect that Hu Jiu would actually laughing at her. It's so disgusting. Well, as long as it's your name, it sounds good. Hu Jiu smiled and comforted Xiao Wu, who was about to freeze. HMPH, it's not too bad. Seeing the carrots that Hu Jiu handed over, Xiao Wu reluctantly forgave him for being rude. The Lightning Rabbit family is not far away. Although this is the center of the Stardow Great Forest, only high-strength soul beasts can survive here. But the Lightning Rabbit is different, because they can teleport. Although their strength is at the bottom of the core circle, they are still home here. You must know that the closer you are to the center of the Stardow Great Forest, the greater the benefits to the spirit beasts, and the practice will have a multiplier effect. According to Xiao Wu's introduction, Hu Jiu realized that in fact, soul beasts also need to pay attention to talent. If you cultivate a soul beast with good talent, the faster you will break through the age of cultivation, and the improvement of strength can also break the limit of lifespan, so that soul beasts can live longer. And the Lightning Rabbit family they were about to meet was not very talented in cultivation, so it happened that Pink Rabbit was about to die of old age. After walking for about half an hour, Xiao Wu took Hu Jiu into a valley. The location of this valley is a bit peculiar. The valley is in the shape of a gourd, and there is only a person-high gap left at the mouth of the bottle. When you walk in, your line of sight opens up. There are no trees in the valley, only a green lawn. On the lawn, a grey and a white rabbit were playing, looking for fresh tender grass from time to time to nibble on. When Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu arrived, the 2 rabbits immediately became vigilant, and the grey rabbit showed a fierce light, as if it was about to pounce on them in the next moment. Xiao Hui, I'm here to see you. Xiao Wu stood in the same place and shouted to the grey rabbit, squeak. Hearing Xiao Wu's voice, a surprise flashed in the eyes of the 2 rabbits, and they disappeared all at once. When they reappeared, they had already come to Xiao Wu's side. The 2 rabbits are almost half a meter long, which is a bit larger than ordinary rabbits, but this does not affect their cuteness at all. Seeing the 2 rabbits rolling beside Xiao Wu, Hu Jiu's eyes softened. Sure enough, bunnies are cute. Facing the 2 enthusiastic rabbits, Xiao Wu's laughter echoed in this small valley for a while. After playing for a while, Xiao Wu only remembered to introduce Hu Jiu to them. Xiao Hu, Xiao Bei, let me introduce you. This person is my partner. I came here to see you today. By the way, he also brought you gifts. Saying that, Xiao Wu gave Hu Jiu a look, indicating that it was time for him to perform. Hu Jiu understood it. He was familiar with it. In the blink of an eye, light flashed in front of Hu Jiu, and a bunch of carrots appeared in front of the 2 lightning rabbits. Hello, this is my martial soul carrot. It's delicious. You can try it. Hu Jiu made an inviting gesture and said friendly. The 2 rabbits looked up at Xiao Wu, and after seeing her nod, they cautiously approached Hu Jiu and sniffed the carrots with their noses. In the next moment, the 2 rabbits seemed to have seen the unparalleled delicacy, 1 carrot at a time, and started to eat. Haha, eat slowly, I still have it here. If you can't feed Damning and Erming, can't you feed the 2 rabbits? Hu Jiu couldn't let these 2 rabbits eat more. The more they could eat, the better. In order to give them a full meal, Hu Jiu also put in a lot of effort, making carrots in his hands, almost exhausting his soul power, while Hu Jiu was feeding the 2 lightning rabbits. A pink rabbit that had always been oversized appeared at the end of the valley. The rabbit was almost 2 meters long, with fluffy and soft fur, which was very attractive. Xiao Jiu, look, that's Pink. Xiao Wu touched Hu Jiu, who was trying to make carrots, and motioned to him. Oh. Hu Jiu looked up, just in line with Pink's eyes. In Pink's eyes, Hu Jiu read gentleness and friendliness at this moment. Hu Jiu felt that Pink was like a gentle and kind-hearted big sister, and her heart was full of intimacy. Pink, hello, my name is Xiao Jiu. I'm Xiao Wu's friend. Would you like to eat some of my carrots too? It's delicious. Hu Jiu smiled slightly and raised the carrot in his hand. The line of sight was dazed, and in the next instant, Pink had appeared in front of Hu Jiu. Pink has a graceful demeanor, picks up Hu Jiu's carrot implicitly, and eats it in small sips. After 2 bites, her pink eyes lit up. She raised her head and nodded to Hu Jiu, as if praising his carrot. After Pink had eaten the carrots, a gentle voice suddenly sounded in Hu Jiu's heart. Xiao Jiu, your carrots are delicious. I like them very much. Hey, Pink you. Hu Jiu didn't expect that Pink would be able to communicate with him. Xiao Jiu. It's very strange. Pink's spiritual power is special and can communicate with people. At this time, Xiao Wu explained to him, you are so lucky. It seems that Pink likes you very much. You know, under normal circumstances, Pink will not speak. Sister Wu, why are you talking about this? I'm embarrassed. Pink's shy voice sounded. By the way, Sister Xiao Wu, you brought Xiao Jiu here today. Must be something. Can you tell me? After being shy, Pink looked at Xiao Wu and Hu Jiu curiously, as if guessing the relationship between the two. Xiao Wu didn't expect Pink to be so smart, which made her feel unprepared for a moment. That's, you want Xiao Jiu to get my spirit ring. Pink's voice was still gentle, as if she would never get angry, but her unusual wisdom was revealed in the language. Pink, Xiao Wu lowered her head in shame, and for a while, she was speechless. The fact is that, for Hu Jiu's spirit ring, she has selfishness. Hu Jiu wanted a spirit ring with teleportation effect, so she went to find it for him, not only looking for it, but also taking him to find the best one. You don't need to do this, Miss Wu. It's not like you don't know about my situation. Even if you don't come today, I won't be able to live for long. I'm very happy to be able to help you. Pink soothed gently. Chapter 48 Sacrifice. Faced with the gentle atmosphere of Pink, Xiao Wu burst into tears in an instant. She was very ashamed. She knew that Pink's lifespan was coming to an end, yet she still thought of it, and she felt even more uncomfortable. It's alright. Pink came to Xiao Wu, her ears stretched out, and held Xiao Wu's face, comforting her softly. Also, it's not that easy to get my spirit ring. If your partner can't get my approval, then I won't give him the spirit ring, sister. Pink, don't blame Xiao Wu, it's all my fault. If I hadn't wanted the teleport skill, Xiao Wu wouldn't have hit you. Hu Jiu couldn't bear Xiao Wu crying so sadly. She stood up on the spot and took the responsibility on herself. Also, please tell me, Sister Pink, how can I get your approval? I will definitely do it for you. In the world, there is never something for nothing. Point thinking of letting people sacrifice to you. It is impossible not to pay, which Hu Jiu had expected. It's just that he never thought that Pink could communicate, but it's better this way. He can accurately know what other people want. Well, Xiao Wu has made a good friend and is responsible. Pink gave Hu Jiu an admiring look and slowly made her request. My request is very simple. It's Xiao Hu and Xiao Bei. They are both young. I'm afraid that no one will take care of them after I leave. This is not a problem. In the future, I will let Daming Erming help you take care of them. Before Hu Jiu could answer, Xiao Wu agreed first. Thank you, Miss Wu. I'm very relieved to have those two helping me watch the child. Pink's voice was full of surprises. Originally, he wanted Hu Jiu to take some time to help her take care of her, but he didn't expect Xiao Wu to give a better guarantee. Those are the emperors and kings in the great Stardao forest. With their care, what is she worried about, then? Pink, do you have any other requirements? Say it together. After agreeing to Pink's first condition, Xiao Wu eagerly continued to ask for Hu Jiu. This made Hu Jiu, who was behind him, helplessly close his mouth as soon as he opened it. Well, the second condition is the effect of Xiao Jiu's martial spirit. I have eaten his carrots, which are very helpful for cultivation. If my children can eat them for a long time, I believe they will not be like me in the future, to the point of running out of life essence. After finishing speaking, Pink looked at Hu Jiu with expectant eyes. Her request was also a temporary initiative. She felt that Hu Jiu's martial spirit was very helpful to their spirit beasts, so she temporarily added another request point. After all, since Xiao Wu brought this person here, she didn't have much room for rejection point. Xiao Wu was the supreme king of the rabbit clan, and she had saved her life before. She was very happy to be able to help Xiao Wu before she died. Well, this matter is not difficult for me, but I'm a human, and it is impossible to stay in the Stardao Great Forest all the time, so I may not be able to meet your request. Hu Jiu didn't want to deceive people either. If he couldn't do it, it was useless even if he promised. Xiao Jiu, you may have misunderstood. It's not that you stay here all the time. I just want you to come here a few times, when you are free. Just leave them some more carrots. Seeing that Hu Jiu misunderstood her meaning, Pink hurriedly explained, haha. That's fine, let's not say too much. I can come here 3 or 5 times a year. Sister Pink, do you think this is okay? Hu Jiu breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he didn't tie him here, that's great. Thank you, Xiao Jiu. Hu Jiu's assurance made Pink happy. With the help of his carrots, he believed that his children would grow up quickly. After the conditions are negotiated, the rest is simple. Because Pink was reluctant to bear Xiao and Xiao Bei, the two of them negotiated with one beast, and the sacrifice would be held in 5 days. In the remaining days, Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu stayed in this small valley, watching Pink spend the last time with the child. By the way, Hu Jiu is also getting acquainted with Xiao and Xiao Bei. After all, he will be the breeder of the 2 rabbits in the future, and the relationship must be good. 5 days later, in an unnamed small valley. Hu Jiu, Xiao Wu, and Pink and Xiao Hui and Xiao Bei were barely 2 people and 3 beasts. Pink stood beautifully opposite Hu Jiu, and around them, Xiao Wu and the 2 rabbits had teary eyes, full of reluctance in their eyes. Such a scene made Hu Jiu feel a little uncomfortable. Originally, he asked himself to be a hard-hearted person, but he did not expect that there would be times when he was sad. Although she only got along with Pink for a few days, she was very friendly to Hu Jiu like a confidant big sister, and did not treat him coldly because he wanted to get her spirit ring. Of course, to get such treatment, Hu Jiu knew that this was inseparable from Xiao Wu. If there was no Xiao Wu, I'm afraid that the first time he saw Hu Jiu, this family of lightning rabbit would fight him desperately. Let's start. Xiao Jiu, just absorb your soul power with peace of mind, and leave the rest to me. Even if the sacrifice is about to be sacrificed, Pink's voice is still gentle, as if it is not a sacrifice, but a meal. Sister Pink, don't worry, in the future, Xiao Hu and Xiao Bei can be handed over to me, and I will take good care of them. Hu Jiu solemnly assured Pink. At this time, the only thing he could do was to let Pink leave at ease. After all, even if he didn't show up today, I'm afraid it won't be long before Pink will die naturally. Pink finally turned her head and glanced at her 2 children, then nodded to Xiao Wu, and finally closed her eyes safely. The next moment, the pink body began to glow, and the pink color illuminated the entire valley. In this ray of light, Hu Jiu felt a warm soul power suddenly injected into his body. Without him bothering, that soul power naturally merged with his soul power. At this moment, Hu Jiu's spirit power level began to increase rapidly, and soon broke through the 30th level, and reached the 31st level. Then quickly broke through from 31 to 32. Knowing that the spirit power was completely dissipated when it was more than halfway through the 32 level. After absorbing the spirit power, the spirit rings under Hu Jiu's feet naturally emerged. Originally, he only had 2 purple spirit rings, but now the 3rd one is condensing at an extremely fast speed. After a while, the 3rd spirit ring was formed, and at this moment, Hu Jiu officially became a 32 food type spirit master. However, the change is not over yet. You must know that, as long as it is a sacrifice, the appearance of spirit bones is inevitable. When Pink sacrificed to Hu Jiu, a spirit bone would naturally appear. No, just after absorbing the soul power, Hu Jiu suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head, as if something was forcibly stuffed into his head. The next moment, his spiritual power began to improve by leaps and bounds. In just a moment, his perception range was more than 10 times larger outside. There are more intermittent pictures flashing. That is the scene outside the valley. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Martial Soul Fusion Skill. This is the head soul bone. A faint comprehension appeared in Hu Jiu's mind, making him comprehend what kind of soul bone Pink brought him. At the same time, he also found that in his mind, there was a skill called mental shock. At this moment, it also solved the reason why Pink can speak with mental ability. It turned out that the spirit is the most powerful place for Pink. Under the blessing of 2000 years of spirit bones, Hu Jiu's spiritual power has skyrocketed. In the sea of knowledge, the spiritual power is like the substance, and Hu Jiu can feel the powerful power inside at all times. After absorbing the spirit bones, Hu Jiu's hang-up panel also changed, and the third spirit ring hang-up position was opened. Outside, while Hu Jiu was waiting for the third spirit ring to open, a strange feeling suddenly appeared in Xiao Wu's heart. And the source of this induction happened to be Hu Jiu, who was sitting cross-legged. What's wrong with me? How can I have such a strange feeling? To Xiao Jiu. Xiao Wu stared at Hu Jiu in front of her suspiciously. It seems that the source of the induction is Xiao Jiu's martial spirit. After careful induction, this thought flashed in Xiao Wu's mind. Xiao Wu, release your martial spirit. Hu Jiu, who was sitting on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes. A glimmer of light flashed in his eyes, and raised his head, and said to Xiao Wu, "Ah, good." Xiao Wu obediently released her martial spirit. After being stunned for a while. In the spirit state, 2 cute white ears popped out of Xiao Wu's head, and her eyes turned pale red. In an unseen direction, a white fluffy tail appeared under her short skirt. At the same time that Xiao Wu released his martial spirit, Hu Jiu also released his carrot martial spirit. After obtaining the third spirit ring, his carrot became even redder. The whole carrot was as crystal clear as a bloodstone. A faint red light permeated the martial soul, making it more precious. Xiao Wu couldn't help swallowing her saliva. Go. Hu Jiu threw the carrot in his right hand at Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu was about to reach out to pick it up, but it was empty. Hu Jiu's spirit, like a phantom, turned into a red light covering Xiao Wu's body. When the red light covered her, Xiao Wu had another amazing change. I saw that a scorpion braid suddenly had no wind and automatically spread out in an instant. The pink clothes on her body suddenly turned into white neon clothes and feathers. The faint moonlight shone on Xiao Wu, making Hu Jiu seem to see a fairy. Xiao Wu's face, which was still youthful, became mature and gentle, and that faint smile was like a breeze, and a shallow glance made Hu Jiu fall into a sluggish state. My little dance has become a fairy. Hu Jiu couldn't help whispering, making the face of Xiao Wu turn red. Who is yours? It's not. Ahem. Xiao Wu, is this our martial soul fusion skill? What's your current situation? Hu Jiu couldn't bear it, because of the mature Xiao Wu, so he had to use the topic to divert his attention. It turns out that this is a martial arts fusion skill. It's fun. I know the name. It's called Fairy Hanyu. Xiao Jiu, have I really become a fairy? Like the fairy who fell into the mortal world, the cold breath dissipated, leaving only naughty and cuteness for Hu Jiu. However, this contrast made Xiao Wu, who had transformed into Fairy Hanyu, even more charming. Fairy Hanyu, isn't that change? But this world doesn't seem to have changes words, and this idea flashed in Hu Jiu's mind. What about your ability? Wu, don't patronize a stinky beauty, quickly feel how your strength has changed. Hu Jiu urged. I'm amazing now. Wu became even more proud when she said that her strength had changed. When she looked up at the sky, her body slowly floated up, and the ribbons fluttered on her body, as if she really wanted to go back to the moon. Jiu, there's more, look. Wu raised her hand proudly, and a beam of moonlight suddenly condensed in front of her. With a wave of her hand, the beam of moonlight flickered and disappeared into Wu's hand. Boom. In the distance, a shocking explosion suddenly sounded on the stone wall of the small valley. In an instant, the sand and stones flew up, and the surrounding area was filled with smoke. Hu Jiu opened his mouth involuntarily in shock. With this casual blow, he definitely had the strength to surpass the 40th level Soul Sect, almost equal to the 50 level Soul King. What? A powerful attack. Hu Jiu praised. Oh, yes, there is one last ability. Saying this, for some reason, a blush flashed on Wu's face. Hu Jiu asked curiously, what ability? That's right, that's it. Wu suddenly faltered and was speechless. After a long time, she stomped her feet and said, see for yourself, just. After saying this, Hu Jiu suddenly felt that her body was flying towards Wu, as if she was out of control. When he came to Wu's side, his body became lighter, and he merged with Wu like a phantom. Could this be the real martial arts fusion skill? At this moment, this thought flashed through Hu Jiu's mind. After the real spirit fusion skill was used, Wu's body suddenly started to grow bigger, and in the blink of an eye, she had turned into a 5-meter tall goddess of the moon. At the same time, after the fusion of martial arts, Hu Jiu found that his mind was actually connected with Wu, and the thoughts between the two fluctuated. It didn't take time, and they would instantly understand their own thoughts. It turns out that Wu likes me. Stinky shameless. Just. As Hu Jiu's thoughts turned around, Wu's thoughts of embarrassment suddenly passed over. Wu, try your attack now. After the play was over, Hu Jiu said to Wu seriously. In the state of martial soul fusion, Hu Jiu discovered that he could not control Fairy Hanyu, but could only be controlled by Wu. This is an obvious distinction. Emotions. He is a tool person who provides strength to Wu. No, do you want to destroy this valley? Wu's voice of refusal came from her mind. Hu Jiu also reacted in an instant. Wu was so powerful when he didn't join him just now. Now that she has transformed into a complete Hanyu fairy, her attack power is terrifying. Next, they carefully experimented with their strength after transforming into Fairy Cold Moon. After a few minutes, the spirit power of the two of them was consumed too much, and the martial spirit fusion state was automatically released. However, in these few minutes, Hu Jiu also estimated the strength of the two after the fusion of martial arts. With their current strength fusion, their strength is almost at the peak of the Soul King, and the ordinary Soul King is not an opponent at all. This is a whole card. Wu, this skill will be our hidden means in the future. Remember not to expose it casually. Hu Jiu reminded. This is not in a peaceful world. In this world, if you want to live well, you don't have enough cards to prepare. Chapter 50 Hu Jiu and -039 S strength. Because nothing was left after Pink's sacrifice, Hu Jiu and Wu had to make a tomb for her, and found some hair she had left behind to bury in at. Afterwards, he took Xiaohu and Xiaobei back to the center of the Stardao Great Forest. Xiaohu and Xiaobei are a pair of brothers and sisters, a pair of soul beasts who have just cultivated for 1,000 years. They are very close to Wu, and together, they are also very friendly to Hu Jiu. A human who can make delicious carrots, and after the Pink sacrifice, Hu Jiu carried their mother's breath, which made them very close to Hu Jiu. On the way, Hu Jiu made a summary of his strength. Name, Hu Jiu cultivation, 32 soul venerable. The first spirit ring, 2195 years soul ring skill, absorb. Double the training speed. Second spirit ring, 1695 years soul ring skill, change. Can change into anyone's appearance, including clothing and martial arts, but cannot change into spirit skills. Incidentally, it changes its own muscles and nerves to temporarily increase the strength of the body. The third spirit ring, 2200 years soul ring skill, teleport. Appears randomly within 100 meters. Self-created soul skills, soul skill meditation, level 8. Cultivation effect increased by 70%. 5 senses strengthening technique, level 8. Vision, hearing, touch, smell, and taste are greatly improved. Shattered cloak hammer, level 9. 81 hammers are combined into one, and the last hammer increases the power of 8,000 pounds. Soul skill control, level 8. Soul power turns into silk, and has a hardness that is not inferior to that of steel wire, and soul power is meticulously controlled. Spiral pill, level 7. The basketball-sized soul power spiral pill, after condensing and forming, rotates at a high speed inside, and its attack power increases with the level. At present, its attack power is comparable to that of a spirit master of the same level of strong attack. Attached spirit bone, tongue. It can be ejected at the speed of light and bind prey. The toughness is extremely strong, the general attack cannot break away, and the maximum attack distance is 10 meters. Head spirit bone, greatly increases the host's spiritual power. Comes with spiritual shock. These are Hu Jiu's current strength. Considering his current strength, although he is a food type soul master, after possessing the third spirit ring skill, it is hard to say that he will fight at higher ranks. It's definitely not weaker than that. In the end, it was his and Xiao Wu's spirit fusion skills. I remember the first time I saw Xiao Wu, his martial spirit had a little sense, but because of his weak level, he was ignored by him later. Now that he has obtained the third spirit ring, his carrot spirit has evolved to a certain extent, finally meeting the requirements of spirit fusion skills after the complete fusion. The goddess of the moon is equivalent to the Soul King of more than 50 levels, and is a very powerful trump card. Currently, his level is only 32, and Xiao Wu is only 24. I believe that when the strength of the two of them increases in the future, this martial arts fusion skill will be even more powerful. Here, the group came to the center of the Stardao Great Forest. Daming, worming. Xiao Wu took care of her happily. Sister Wu, are you leaving? Not to mention Daming's strength, he noticed the change in Hu Jiu's spirit power level early on. Well, we are leaving. There is one thing I need your help before leaving. Xiao Wu said. Sister. Xiao Wu, say it. Daming and Erming looked at Xiao Wu at the same time. Xiao Wu's business is their business, no matter what they are asked to do. Daming Erming will not hesitate. Hey, those are the two little guys. Xiao Wu pointed at Xiao Hui and Xiao Bei, and then said, their mother has left, and the two little guys have no one to take care of them. I want you to help me take care of them. No problem. Teach me and Erming these two little rabbits. We will take good care of them. Daming nodded and said, then, I'll trouble you. Xiao Wu brought the two rabbits to Erming's side, patted Erming's arm and said, roar. Erming patted his chest twice, indicating that he must protect them. Next, Hu Jiu started to make carrots, not only for the two rabbits, but also for Daming and Erming. This is done in 2 days. As long as the soul power is exhausted, he will recover with all his strength, and then continue to do it. Such a workload will tire Hu Jiu. Of course, the results are also plentiful. In 2 days, more than 5,000 carrots for accelerated cultivation can be cultivated for at least 2 months. On the 3rd day, the two left the core area of the Stardao forest under the escort of Erming. After saying goodbye to Erming, we hurried to Notting City. Counting the time, it was only a few days before the start of school. When they hurried back to Notting City, it was estimated that it was just the start time point. After leaving the Stardao Great Forest, Hu Jiu began to maintain his spirit power manipulation skills at all times, keeping the fluctuations of his 2 spirit rings to a small extent, and the colors also changed. It becomes the best spirit ring structure of 2 yellows and 1 purple. The 3 purple spirit rings are really amazing. In order to avoid trouble, he even hid the fluctuations of his own soul power to the level of the 20s. After that, in order to be more secretive, he used his changing skills to make double insurance. With the current concealment methods, Contrabilo can't see his true cultivation at all. 7 days later, Hu Jiu and Xiao Wu were now in front of Notting College with exhausted faces in order to get back to the academy as soon as possible. The two hurriedly hurried, but they didn't delay in the middle. Haha, presumably after going back to see Zayas, and this time, he will blame me again. Thinking of Tang San's belly full of grievances, Hu Jiu felt amused. Humph. You know your little San. How can you go to such a dangerous place in the Stardow Great Forest? If you don't let him go, you are protecting him. Zao. Wu raised her nose and said dissatisfiedly, oh, okay. You're right. Hu Jiu rubbed his forehead depressedly. This little dancing rabbit even eats Tang San's vinegar, and no one else. When he returned to the academy, Hu Jiu only felt relieved for a while. Here, there was finally no strong aura that could be seen everywhere surrounding him. When his strength is not strong, staying in the Great Stardow Forest is suffering, and he doesn't want to feel the suppressed feeling anymore. Zao. Jiu, you guys are finally back. I thought you guys couldn't keep up with the registration. Just as Hu Jiu and Zhao Wu were standing in front of the academy's gate, admiring the scenery, Tang San's surprised voice came from the side. Regarding Hu Jiu's unexplained departure for nearly a month, Tang San was the only one who could guess what they were going for as a close friend. Hu Jiu never planned to hide his strength from them, so after guessing that Hu Jiu might be hunting for the third spirit ring, Tang San was actually quite worried. Now that Hu Jiu has returned safely, he is relieved and a little annoyed. What's the matter? Tang San, are also a 25th level control type spirit master anyway. I gave you a little help from a support type spirit master, but I was actually disliked and didn't even bring me to play. Well said, good brother. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.